rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up.
My plan is to show you that I understand. Yes, indeed. Hi, how are you? Welcome to Trap Talk with MJ. I'm your boy MJ up in the building. Woo, I'm excited for tonight. You have no idea. My heart's racing. It's been a while since I got this excited. No offense to other guests. I get excited, but tonight I'm just really excited. And you'll see why here in just a second, man. But what's good, everybody? Welcome to Trap Talk with MJ. If this is your first time tapping in with us, please do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button, man. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you're not sleeping on any Trap Talk with MJ podcast because you never know who I'm going to bring to the channel. Facts are facts. This is why you're tuned into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. I didn't give myself that name. I forgot who gave me that name, but you know who you are. Shout out to you. You're amazing. I'm just trying to stick by that name. You feel me? And then also, man, before we get started, first and foremost, you already know I'm about to be pushing that U.S. ARC, baby. We need to be supporting U.S. ARC before we get into any trap business. This is what's important. U.S. ARC, continue to support, continue to fight for our rights, fight for our animals. This is very important stuff, man. This ain't nothing to play around with. This ain't something to, oh, I'll do it on my story because so-and-so is doing it. No, man, that's good. Do it on your story, but keep doing it on your story. Keep it consistent. This isn't like a fad, like, oh, U.S. ARC time. No, every day is U.S. ARC time. Let's go. Shout out to U.S. ARC. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing for us. And yeah, we're going to fight this to the end, man. We all love our animals like our damn children. So, I mean, I don't have children, but these are like my children. You feel me? So any super chats that are, shout out to early birds, but any super chats in the comments tonight automatically goes to U.S. ARC. You guys know the deal. It's going to be like that for every episode, okay? So, and you already know what I do on every episode. I shout out only the best and the freshest delivered to your doorstep. www.coldbloodedcafe.com. Talking about that, those day one pinkies, mouse pinks, all the way to whale shark rats. Humongous rats, bigger than any rat you'll ever see, delivered to your doorstep. 30-hour flat rate shipping. Shout out to the Cold Blooded Cafe team. Shout out to John and Alex over at Sim Containers. Just got word. A couple news flashes right now with Sim Containers. They're fully in stock right now. Head over to Sim Containers website and let's buy out those Sim Containers that he has available. And then the next news flash, there's a new design coming out, a new Sim box design that's coming out. That's all I can tell you for now. I'm hopefully going to be having some here in the next week or so, and then I'll display them here for everyone for you to see. I wonder what they're going to be like. It's going to be super sick. That's all I got to say. And then shout out to Focus Cube Habitats. The future of enclosures has arrived, man. Shout out to Stephen and Ashley, Flex in Texas, man. Got to love all the hard work the Texans put in, and especially these two with the enclosures that they're building. Super durable, super light, easy to move around. You can play Tetris all you want with them. Fill the room from the floor to the fucking ceiling, man. I know a lot of you have that vision, and a lot of you already live in that life, like the guy, we're going to be bringing on and the guest and, all this other stuff, man. Shout out to Freedom Breeder, man. Stainless steel racks, Freedom Breeder, made in the United States. If you got a Freedom Breeder rack, pat yourself on the back, man. You're in that level of professionalism when it comes to reptile keeping or rodent breeding. So Freedom Breeder Rack, made in the United States. And then need I say more, man? Thank you so much, Miguel Garcia, Always Evolving Pythons, for sponsoring the channel. I appreciate your support, man. But more importantly, I appreciate you being a leader in the industry and setting the examples where these fools, showing them how you really fucking do work with these ball pythons, how you really do work when it comes to marketing, how you really do work when it comes to networking and collaborations, and the list goes on, man. Just go follow Always Evolving Pythons, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Shout out to my boy Miguel. And then, listen, the guests always make the biggest reason why this is the coolest reptile podcast in the world. But I also have friends like Stephen Cush, who's going to be here today making this the coolest reptile podcast in the world. Hi, Stephen Cush.
Hey, MJ.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you, man?
I'm good. You know why I had to bring you here tonight, right?
Why? Why is that?
Well,
let me know.
Come on, let's be real. Would you be happy if I did this show tonight and you weren't here?
No, I'd probably be crying. Oh, honestly.
Okay, well let's not tell our guests that you're going to be crying, because I don't think he puts.
Well, no, I won't now. So.
All right. Well, listen. First and foremost, Stephen Cush, RepTech, right here in Cold Blooded Cafe. One of my sponsors, and guy works fucking hard on a daily basis. So I'm happy you are here, Stephen. All seriousness, I'm glad you're here. Me and Stephen have had multiple conversations, and a lot of them wrapped around emerald tree boas. Stephen has, at least one for sure looking promising, right? You have one girl that ovulated, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And sure, how does that feel for you right now? How do you feel finally?
It feels good, but it's also like, you don't want to get ahead of yourself, because we have that long human-like gestation period going forward, and maybe someone runs away with the emerald eggs again. So,
oh my god! Hey, I'm glad you said it, not me. Maybe we could break into that in a bit too.
Yeah.
But no, dude, honestly, Stephen, you were let down last year, because I thought that damn emerald ovulated for you. I thought we were waiting for babies any day too. I really did. And then sure enough, fucking Houdini. All of a sudden the eggs disappeared.
This year's progress with that animal compared to last year,
right?
I can kind of see where I was misreading signs. What I thought was her being gravid post-ovulation may have been pre-ovulation, may have been an ovulation, and just I really don't know.
That's why I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, and with the female last year, we definitely didn't catch a true ovulation. With the girl that's up there in that tub right there. I thought she had like 5 or 6 ovulations. It's like, one of them had to be it. She was doing everything the right way. Now, honestly, I'm waiting for her next shed. And that'll pretty much be your post-ovulation shed, and the hotspot's ready. So she's just kind of cooking on towards hopefully a litter. So
that's exciting, man. That's exciting. Well, also, Stephen, like I said, for you to actually be on that next step to actually having babies is this is why we do what we do, right? We just keep trying no matter what.
Yeah.
So. But man,
yep.
tonight's guest. So tonight's guest, oh wait, hold on. Someone's here. He just showed up. Oh my God, it's Forrest. Forrest is here. Forrest, his spirit's here. What's up, man? I knew you weren't gonna miss this, Forrest. Hold on 1 second. Here he is.
All right, you stole the badge from our.
I didn't steal this.
Conduit, or you were given a badge from the conduit.
Desiree gave me this. And I keep it with me all the time now. And I know he's definitely going to be hanging out for this episode, because this is, and you agree with this, hands down, who is one of the guys that Forrest would always talk highly of, and literally was careful with every word he chose to speak with this guy. Who was it?
It was the guy on the thumbnail tonight.
What's his name?
R something? Help me out.
Nope.
No, Mr. Ryan Wolleson.
Oh my gosh.
Ryan Wolleson. Nacho himself. This is my man, Ryan.
What's up?
Reptiles. Wow, I
What's
told
up,
you I had a
man?
special intro for you.
Yeah, you did. That's good stuff.
Okay, real quick. So if anyone's confused, Ryan Nacho Libre is definitely one of the best movies of all times.
Right?
And me and Ryan actually happened to see eye to eye on that, so that's why I had to drop that. And I look at him as Nacho. This is Nacho to me right here. So I'm gonna move this because I can't see myself. But man, what's up, Ryan? How are you doing, bro?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Man, I'm so excited to have you on. And then not only that, like you're a San Diego native. I mean, I want to know about native, right? Where were you born and raised at?
Mansfield, Ohio.
Ohio, that's what it was.
Ohio.
Where did that come from? Is that?
I don't know. He just kind of ended up here.
I was not there during sound check, and now it's there. Okay.
You got a surprise for me. I had to return a favor.
Oh my God, there's Ryan for you. Okay, man. But based out of San Diego, he's about like 40 minutes north of me, and and I found that out when Steven and Forrest went to go visit you. Was that already 2 years ago? More than 2 years ago?
I know, it's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a long time, yeah. Too long.
Yeah. Forrest came the year prior or the year before, and then Steven came down the next one, so that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. It was cool to watch.
Yeah.
Forrest didn't want to tell me like, hey, you can't come. He just kept beating around the bush. But hey, look, either way, no, like I said, I'm not even mad. To where he went and what he got to go do, it is what it is. And I am gonna go there someday, I hope, right? Because I have your hat.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. I know. Then we get all this COVID mess going on. It just complicates stuff even more, right? So
it did. Well, how you been with like all that going on? I mean, I know we briefly talked like last year, but then like how's everything been going with that? Like with your job and the snakes?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my job hasn't really changed much. I still got to go to work and everything. But we got to social distance and all that fun, wear a mask all day and just like everyone else. So the snakes, I've actually I haven't worked with them as much as I typically do. I've been trying to get the wife out of the house. She's 24/7 here at the house, and she's the one that likes to go on trips every month or every couple, weeks and stuff. So I've been trying to get her out and doing stuff. So we've been actually traveling a lot. So that's kind of fun, but.
That's cool. And your wife, is she from California as well? Or excuse me, is she from California or?
No, she's Oregon.
Oregon. Okay. Wow.
Yep, Oregon. So
sick.
Yeah, we met when I was living in Dallas. So.
Right. Okay. Now, for the people who don't really know, like, the involvement you have with not only with the emerald trees, but just with the industry by itself, like tell them a little background information and as far as like what it is that you work with, but like, how long you've been doing it for, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think kind of like everybody, we grew up around this stuff, and back in Ohio, we had a lot of creeks and stuff. And so I'd always be catching stuff out of the creek, and, that's kind of what stemmed all of it. I'd always be grabbing bullfrogs and red-eared sliders out of my grandparents' pond and all that fun stuff. And so it's like everybody else, it's just always been in your blood or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But currently I'm working with the emeralds, of course. I have some green tree pythons as well, blue tree monitors, and then I have tortoises, both pancake and star tortoises, as well as some Uroplatus fantasticus, so some satanic leaf-tailed geckos. So a little bit. I like a little bit of variety. So.
And then I forgot to ask you, but like, where do you keep any of your stuff outside?
Not currently. I will move the tortoises out, like in the summer, but I kind of bring them, inside once it gets dark and stuff. So I just leave them out for the day. So.
Okay. So like people, like I'll tell you right now, Ryan, obviously with the ball python community growing, because this channel, I do have the arboreal, lovers that fuck with this channel, but a lot of ball python people fuck with this channel. And the more I bring arboreal guests to the show, the more questions I get and people more interested.
Sure.
Like they're like so like fired up about it, right? But like help, how did you even start with emeralds? Like why emeralds? Like how did you even get your foot started to where you're at? Because I asked myself that the first time I came across your page, and whatnot, you know, and I just thought, how did this guy get into this, you know? So
right. Yeah, when I was living in Ohio, one of my friends actually had the Snakes of the World book, or I think that's what it's called. And it has like a big emerald on the front of it. So I'm like, what is that? That is awesome. And so that's kind of what always stemmed it. And then when I moved to Dallas, it was a little bit more, there's more involvement there as far as reptiles and stuff and the shows went than where I was before. So I was just always searching for them ever since, since that picture really, and happened to pick up a pair at one of the shows in Dallas there. Actually, I think it was one of the smaller ones in Arlington, but yeah.
It was a Northern, or what was it that you picked? Okay.
Yeah, so I started with Northerns, and I kind of course ran through the same kind of thing that everybody else does when they first start out with wild caughts. Without, they're cheap, and of course they're fairly readily available, but I ran through some of the same problems that a lot of others did when they're first starting out, and it's really hit or miss with the wild caught stuff. And I think one of the biggest things is you're trying to learn the husbandry of the animal and also deal with a lot of these health problems. So that everybody else, they always ask like, well, what's your recommendation for newbies? And it's always like, oh yeah, if you can get one from a breeder that's well established, that's always the best route. That way you're just really worrying about husbandry and not all these other complicating issues that you might not really understand at the point. But the problem is like, how many, especially Northern, I think basins now are more readily available than the Northerns, unfortunately. But
yeah, it's weird.
So.
Now, I mean, Steven, you didn't start working with emeralds really until you went to RepTech, or did you already have emeralds? I can't remember.
I started probably like 8 months or so before I started working here. And I had like one of the bad experiences with emeralds from the start that some people have, and like others learned the lesson the hard way. So, but now all the ones we have here are perfect.
Yeah. So one thing about Ryan also, guys, is he's an admin of probably you guys heard me about Facebook groups, not a fan of them, but this is like one of the ones I cherish, and I do get a lot of information from it for the most part. Some of it's a lot of funny stuff too. I'll admit, but he's, Ryan runs this page and he helps a lot of people out. Like he's helped me out a lot. I'll tell you what, I remember there was one time I had a picture, and I don't know if you remember me when I first got this female, Ryan, I think, because I remember I sent you a picture of her when she was newly, here, but then I posted a pic like a few months down the road, and I thought she was turning black. Like I thought she had some black scales coming in. And you were like, nah, man, that's not black scales. I think you even said that she was losing weight. You're like, I think she's losing weight. And that was like my first, and it turns out like she went off food, and next thing you know, she was regurgitating right after all that. Like it was crazy. And she was an import. I had her for about 5 months, and she ate fine. And then next thing you know, she just looked like she was losing weight. And I was confused because she was eating, but she was losing weight. And so I thought, no, she can't be losing weight. And then as I took her off the perch, I looked at her, I was like, man, she is losing weight. Like this isn't how she should be looking if she's been eating food, right? So, but man, you've seen so many stories, I'm sure, Ryan, like countless stories about imports just being, in somebody's collection and then not being in someone's collection, right?
Yeah, right. And we should all. I'm not the only one that runs that group. Ed Marino's a big.
Ed Marino, yeah. Ed and Ryan.
Yeah, who's that guy? So he's way as far as experience goes. That's who I learned from, and I think that's one of the other things to really think about is, when you're first starting with anything, you really want to get somebody that's been in the game for a while, has really seen a lot of different stuff that can really kind of help you through, and that was Ed for me. It's, kind of trial and error, and you're picking stuff up as you go along the way. It's definitely not like, that we always get questions like, oh, is just anybody is it a beginner snake? Is it and, you know, kind of go back and forth. It's like, well, if it's a captive produced animal and you don't have any health issues, which, you know, captive animals can certainly have just as many as well. But that's well set up and you have your husbandry dialed in. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say they're not a first animal for anyone, as long as they're willing to listen. I think that's the biggest part is, you know, we all kind of have a hard time listening as newbies. And that's one of the first things to really try and remember is like, you know, it's all right. Everyone's been in your spot before, and questions, you know, ask away. Most of us that have been around them a while, you know, they'll be like, oh, I remember that. And that's one of the stories I always enjoy when I talk to Ed is like, if I think I have a crazy story, he's probably got one bigger because he's just been doing it so long that, you know, that he's really seen a lot. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. And I know it's always kind of tough when you're first starting out. It's like, oh, and then learning who to ask. You know, a lot of these groups on Facebook are so hard to really like figure out, okay, who is producing, who has been keeping for quite some time. And, you know, you have people that are always the newer keepers that want to help, which is great. But, you know, it's really hard to understand like what is behind what they're saying a little bit. So,
right. Now, like, let me ask you this, because I mean, you could also agree that a lot of the newer keepers, or even ones who've been keeping for like, you know, I mean, I guess anything under 5 years, I think is new to me, right? I'd feel like, but they tend to speak up more than others, you know, like they want to be the voice, right? And they're
excited. Yep.
They're excited. You're right. It is excitement, right? It could also be misleading for somebody who just doesn't respond and just like likes to read things, right? Because that's the thing. You could read so many different ways to do things in a comment thread, right? So I think it's so important what you just said. You got to remember, like, and trust who to ask. Like, feel someone that you could trust to rely on information. And like, for instance, Ed was that guy for you, right, Ryan?
Yep. And I mean, that's the cool thing about the group is I think we kind of turned on the mentor tab on that Facebook group that we have, so that we are able to kind of give people some names of like who you should really talk to, kind of learning the species. So it's helpful.
So, you know, obviously, man, we're talking about, you know, establishing imports, which we haven't gotten too deep into yet, but, you know, there's a lot of different chapters of keeping and, you know, an emerald thriving. But for the most part, you know, a captive born bred or even a healthy import, it's not too difficult to get an emerald thriving on something that's structured like on a scheduled basis where it could be a peace of mind, right?
Yep.
It's an easy snake to keep, in other words.
Yeah, it's quite honestly, I've gotten lazier keeping emeralds. You know, I was like way big into lizards when I was younger. And I mean, I didn't really keep snakes. The emeralds are kind of what blew everything up, and the green pythons as well when I first started. But, you know, those are kind of what started me into snakes. And before that, I was always lizards, you know, tons of crickets everywhere. And so it was kind of a little different, you know. And so I was used to constantly feeding, clean, and now I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like doing anything today. I think I'll just watch a movie or something. But so, you know, you got to watch it. You got to stay on top of them, of course, too. But yeah, they make it a little easy. And their metabolism is so slow that, you know, a lot of times you're not cleaning up a lot of feces and urates and stuff. So like you would a lizard for sure. So.
Right, because obviously things go right through lizards for the most part. I'm just now realizing that, like, you know,
yeah, that awesome little lace monitor you got, huh?
I don't know about little, man. This motherfucker already doubled in size, going on triple in the size. Like, since I had him, and Steven knows all about it. I talked to him all about it, and yeah, that thing's just. I'm just learning every day by them, and they're smart, bro. And they eat, and they shit really, you know, a lot, right? But unlike the emerald, right? So let's talk about the digestive, you know, the way the emeralds digest. So I mean, couple, you know, bowel movements a month is what you're looking at with an emerald typically, right?
Yeah, I mean, the more, if you can get like 1 meal to defecation, 2 is like kind of, but I think a lot of people even look at 3, like, oh, 3 meals and then defecation. But, what's up, Stratus? And so, I think the more they're moving and the more hydrated they are, the better they're drinking, the better they'll do. And this is definitely, from what I've come to find out, a species that, it's crazy how much they're influenced by water, rain, drinkers, bowls being changed. It's like right away that night or few hours after you're changing water, they're like right down in there just drinking away.
Yeah.
So
Drinking.
it's, between like people always, they'll ask kind of like, well, what about humidity and misting and, missing snakes directly, not missing snakes directly, and like all these little questions. And I mean, I've come to find that, unless you're really heavily raining on them at least once a week, you're probably going to run into some problems. So.
Okay. Yeah, because we had Dennis on yesterday, right, Steven? And he was saying that they breed in the zoo that they breed their emeralds in that do great are like they get sprayed every day, like they're literally getting drained on every single day. And he's like, that's what makes the emeralds thrive, because I think people underestimate how much they actually drink water, and one thing I learned from Ed and Ed and somebody else, but I change my waters every day. Like I'm just anal about if I could be home and change the waters, why not? I just change the waters. You know what I mean? It doesn't hurt. But I've noticed them drinking, bro, for minutes on minutes, bro. They just chug, and it's like, what are they doing down there? Like,
it's crazy. Yep. Yeah, and I have a lot of females where as soon as I start, males too, but as soon as I start really heavily misting, they're dropping their tails almost, within a few minutes. I've got some where it's almost like they know the routine. If I miss the end of their tail and get kind of their cloaca all wet and stuff, then they're like, okay, it's time to go. But I'll miss down the whole cage, and it just really, I mean, that night they're so active and drinking off the walls and water bowls, and it's crazy. It's like they just kind of wake up. And I think that's one thing that I've noticed is the PVC cages. I have some as well, and I also use some Exoteras, which I have a heated room, so a lot of my problems, or a lot of what problems other people would have, I don't really. But I've noticed that with the PVC cages, people don't mist as frequently because they're not as heavily vented, and so you get a lot of mold problems and so on, and then it's really hard to get them nicely sealed. And then what do you do with all this water that's in the bottom of them? So I think those work well for chondros, and they can work well for emeralds if you can manage them. But it's just one of those things where like each enclosure has its own set of challenges, we'll say, I guess.
Now, what would you say? Because I mean, there are lists of challenges that people go through keeping emeralds, and like I think we were talking earlier before we went live, how like you've had experience with emeralds just not being brought up the right way that just ended up like not making it out right. But what are some steps that could be avoided for that? Like, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how people could raise up an emerald the incorrect way and not even see it that they're doing it?
Yeah, right. Well, I think for one, it's always the word boa. I think people think they're supposed to be large animals that eat large meals, and these are more arboreal boas. A lot of people like to compare them to, like some of the smaller arboreals that are always constantly moving, and they're not too far away from a lot of those species as well. They're a thinner species. They're kind of made to be that way, and everyone's like, oh well, when you get a wild caught animal in, they're huge. I'm like, yeah, they're huge, but they're actually pretty thin and pretty athletic looking. If you compare them to like a boa constrictor or some of the other large boids and stuff, there's quite a difference between them and what you'll even find an emerald coming in from the wild. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things is just making sure you keep them a little thinner. And the more you look at them, the easier it is to kind of understand, okay, is this animal overweight? Is it super thin? And there's little things that you'll start to notice, you know, as they get thinner, the lobes on the top of their head, the muscle bellies, they'll really start to, you know, especially if they're sick, they'll start to absorb them to a point where it's, you know, it looks like my hat. It's almost like a point at the top of their head just because those muscle bellies have kind of deteriorated enough.
Because that head could tell you a lot. You taught me that.
It does, yeah.
That head teaches you a lot.
Right.
The dip, you know, all that stuff. But I think we'll talk a little bit more. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, it just shows you if they're losing weight or not. You know, if they have nice muscle bellies. But you know, and I will say in the off season when I'm not pairing them up to breed or getting them ready to breed, I keep them pretty thin. And then as the season starts coming closer, you know, I'll start, especially with the females, I'll really start giving quite a bit of food to make sure they're well conditioned really to be able to carry a litter full term. But the males, I think, for one, the smaller, the better, really. I've had, I think Stephen and I have talked about this, you know, males that are literally half the size or even smaller than the females do just fine as far as, you know, populating and producing a litter with the female and so on. So.
Oh yeah, I just reminded myself another solid reason, another one for MJ why Steven's on this damn podcast is because he has fucking Wolleson bloodline over at RepTech. He has one of your hatchlings, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like I might need to get some Willy line back from him here in the next.
I am jealous. Hey, just so you know, man, and like, you know, I'm not just trying to give Ryan rubarounds or Steven, but it's really hard to get a fucking baby emerald that's hatched in the United States. Okay, this guy's list. It's really, and respect to them, but like, you know, it's how are we ever gonna get there when these two are just swapping animals? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah.
Well,
and one of the big things I learned from Ed is like, you know, not all of them are going to be producing for you. You know, you have to have a decent number of them. You know, like my first pair that produced for me, I just got lucky. I mean, I didn't really keep a large number of them, but you know, it's like everything. The more you have, the more success you're going to have. And, you know, so that's something that like I've really kept a lot of babies back just because I'm trying to think, okay, well, who's next? And, you know, that's the thing. It's not like any other snake where you're constantly producing with the same animal year after year. It's like they can't produce every year. They won't build enough condition to be able to even carry a litter full term. So you're really like every other year, every even 2 years, depending on the female and how she recovers. So, you know, they're not really produced in high numbers. And so I'm like, once I have so many, I don't know what to do with them. I started thinking, okay, well, maybe I should start. I'd rather have too many and get rid of a few than have too few and be like, oh man, yeah, this female isn't, you know, big enough yet. And now I'm behind the 8 ball again. And so, yep.
Damn. Now,
but
I'm sorry, what were you going to say something?
I was also going to say, I think, you know, everyone is always after females, and it's just as important to have those breeder males, you know, because not all of them are going to be great breeders. Some of them are really lazy, like this guy. It's like, come on, dude, you're the nicest male I've gotten. You're just like, look at him.
You're just sitting there. You're full,
yeah,
so, full of tacos.
Yeah, I just have to constantly be messing with them all the time. I'm like, you must be a little fighter. You like to fight with another dude before you. I don't know.
Yeah, what do you need? You need to wrestle?
Right. So he's been frustrating. So, you know, this is Forrest's dad here. So the little Forrest that I produced in 2019.
Wow.
Was it 2019? But yeah, so crazy story. I'd always heard about it from other breeders, especially Merino and stuff. Like some males are just assholes. He's like, they literally will attack any female that's got the smell of another male on it. And you got to learn like who they are pretty quick so that you know how to pair stuff. Because like, for instance, when this one copulated with that female, I actually had a previous male in, I put him in, nothing was happening. I swapped a male, and he seemed to have always been pretty chill with females, but I never really had introduced like right after a male. I might have used like a male shed to kind of stimulate him and whatnot, but never like introduce him right after a male. Well, I came in the room and there were these little gashes on the female. Like he had just bit the living crap out of her. And so, of course, I'm all freaked out, right? And so I pull him out right away. And, I started, of course, treating the female to make sure that her wounds were all nice and clean and talked to some vet friends about what to do. But shortly after that, I put this male here back in. And like within a couple of weeks or whatever, he's like copulating. They're copulating like crazy. And I'm like, really?
Just an abuse.
So he just like, I don't know what his deal is, but, so it's not like, all the males are going to be good breeders. I think Ed, he's almost got twice as many males as he does females because, if he's not getting one going, then the next male's going in. And, it's once you have options, I think it's a lot easier to produce stuff, but it's just something to think about. Just because you have a female doesn't mean you're gonna get babies. You gotta have a good male, especially. I almost think
real. And to all you ball python breeders out there, I'm telling you right now, it's not as easy. You can't just get something and it's gonna be as compatible. Like, I'm learning that with chondros too. Like even with chondros, certain males aren't compatible with certain females. Because I would take one male out, put the other male in different story, and I'd be like, whoa, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? But you breed chondros, you work with chondros as well, right?
Yep.
What's the big?
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that. Well, like I said, there's some males that it doesn't matter who you put them in with, they're gonna breed that female. So like, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth with the pair compatibility thing, especially with the northerns. There's each side of the story and stuff and why people feel that way. But I kind of feel like it's just the male is a lazy breeder. And a lot of times you put a good breeding male in and, he's going to get the job done. But, I don't know, maybe he's prettier than the other male. Who knows? We'll have to ask the ladies.
Who knows? Speaking of ladies, I will say though, I discovered one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to my entire life, other than this one, and it's Kevin Samuel. So check it out; it's fucking nuts. Have you heard it? Just try it. I don't want to get too deep on it, but check out Kevin Samuel's podcast. Just when you have, if you're just like, hey, I want to listen to something good, and it's like facts that are just coming out of his mouth, and Kevin Samuel.
He probably doesn't reference Nacho Libre very much, though. Think about how many likes and stuff he'd get then.
For real. Or maybe you'd get Ryan Wolleson to be his guest, if he goes down that route, but we'll see. I don't know. Now, Ryan, I want to say, okay, because we were talking about trial and errors and shit, and I'm sure you've had plenty of trial and errors. But like, at what point did you go from keeping emeralds to breeding emeralds?
Let's see. I've been here 8 years. I was in Dallas for 5. Within that first year of Dallas, I had my first pair of emeralds. I actually lost those 2 to the regurgitation issues, and then started with another pair. And I kind of just kept the 2 for a long time, doing all the wrong stuff. I guess that's kind of the question. Is it wrong or not to keep them together? I think some pairs you might be fine, others no. It definitely stresses a lot of pairs out. And so, but I kept them together, for a good solid year. A lot of, you'll hear me talk about my experience of keeping them outside during the summer and bringing them in at night in Dallas. Whoa. And that's kind of what really, I think, stemmed the whole breeding, because when I moved then to California, they had already locked up. I didn't really know what I was doing, and then all of a sudden I had babies. Babies are what kind of started the whole, I went from like 2 animals, of course, to that litter. And then it kind of grew from there. It's like once you get that first litter and you have all these little babies, you're like, oh, you get so excited and like in on taking care of the babies and talking with other keepers and breeders and stuff about how to get them well established, it really just blows your excitement and enthusiasm up. And then next thing, at least for me, is like, oh, well, let's get more. This was really cool. Why not get more? So it kind of just kept getting bigger from there, I guess.
Right.
So,
I will say right now, Ryan, you posted a video on Facebook, I think a couple years ago, of you of your female dropping a litter, and man, I'll never forget that, bro. I was like, I need to experience that. Like, that is so badass. Yeah, it had to be like 2-3 years ago, but you put it on the page, and man, it was so epic. I have a couple of those videos, but I always try to capture them because it's always really cool, you know, because like I'm seeing the baby coming out as they're seeing the new baby come out. So like, I'm like, wow, look at that one. And they're like, wow, look at that one. So it's always kind of fun, but yeah. So, I mean, you kept your emeralds outside in Dallas, and was this all year long you were keeping them outside, or like how are you keeping them outside?
So I really was following the weather quite a bit. I had a Neodesh cage and had drain in it. So I just had a patio mister set up, and it was on a timer. So they were constantly getting misted. And then it was really nice because I didn't have to worry about it drained, you know. But yeah, it was crazy. And, you know, I always make the joke like, yeah, the weatherman could have been fired quite a few times because, you know, you're like, oh, it's only going to be like 90 degrees today. And you get home and it's like 95, 98. You're like, yo, maybe I better bring them inside.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think that's one of the things that you'll see people constantly mention is, oh, these guys, you got to keep them really cool. And, you know, if you don't, they'll regurgitate and like all this stuff. And it's like, well, is that health related or is that husband related? Because, you know, I certainly wouldn't recommend, you know, keeping them in outside of their normal range of temps. But if you're keeping them and they're like, oh, 2 degrees warmer or 5 degrees warmer, and you got a regurgitating animal, I don't know. I would be looking at, oh, my temps are 2 degrees off, you know? So that's really something that I think has been pushed in the past. And you see a lot of papers and stuff out there of like well-respected guys where they're saying, oh yeah, you know, you have to keep them 5 degrees plus or minus, or else you're going to have regurgitation. I can't. You know, my bad keeping tells me that that's absolutely false. And so, it's kind of like, you know, you almost have to have those bad experiences to really call bullshit on some of this stuff that people are posting. Yep. And, you know, I get going and I know I need to watch it sometimes, but it's just so frustrating that, wow, after all this time, we're still talking about this same crap. And it's crazy to me.
Now, with the regurgitation thing, right? A lot of people are scared to feed their emeralds certain size prey or, you know, rodents because they don't want their animal to puke, regurgitate.
Right.
Like, I mean, is that something that you can't fix? I mean, what's the deal with the regurgitation disease? It's crypto. Isn't that what crypto is? Are we talking about crypto?
I think it's really hard to draw a straight line to like, this is always what it is, because it can range. You know, I think the wild caught, you know, they're used to a totally different diet. So I think there is a little bit involved there with getting them established. But you also have to consider the health parameters and issues that are involved with that, you know. So I always like to run the fecals, and, you know, I always say that, you know, we need a direct fecal as well as a float, because a lot of these animals that are coming in, they can really easily pick up protozoa and stuff from water sources that are like contaminated at the importer or exporter. And some of those are really tough to get a hold of. And you need a good vet that understands, you know, how to treat them. You, of course, need to screen them, treat them, and then re-screen them, you know, so that, you know, you've actually taken care of the problem. The worst thing to do is just like go in there and just throw meds everywhere. Oh, this will take care of it, you know? And you might not have that experience of dosing them correctly, knowing which ones to use. And that's where you need your veterinarians to really guide you. They have that, you know, clinical background and animal anatomy and physiology. Like you might have a better idea on husbandry of an individual animal, but
Yeah.
I mean, come on, really? You're better than a vet, and you can squirt some meds down an animal and overdose it, or, you know, so that's the frustrating part is people get jumping on it. They don't know if they do have a problem or don't have a problem. And then they throw in all these meds, and is it really treating the problem, or is it just clinically, you know, like just supporting them through possibly an incurable disease?
Right.
So, so that's always kind of the thing to really think about. It's like, yeah, vets are expensive, but how many years of school do they go to? Like how much does it cost you per test? Like it does all add up. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna go out and get a $300 emerald and I'm just gonna squirt meds down his throat and keep it 80 degrees and feed it small mice, and it'll be just fine. Well,
It's okay. It's okay if it pukes every other day.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, because like, let's be honest. I mean, people who get their first emeralds for $300 go through it puking, right? Now, what's your advice for somebody who goes through that? Like, what would be their first move they should do?
I would take them to the vet. If you can get a fecal screen, I feel like that will take care of a lot of the problems there. And if not, you know, I do think that wild caught emeralds, you do need to work them up on meals as far as kind of get them used to them, you know, the captive diet, so to speak, while you're treating and so on. You know, you don't want to definitely overdo it because you don't really know what internally is going on without the vet screening it properly. So you do need to kind of, you know, keep that in mind. But, you know, once their fecals are coming back clean and they're kind of acting like they typically would, nice tight coils, not real loose, you know, you notice them gaining weight, you know, you definitely, they should be, I mean, a wild caught animal that's been well established, medium rat is not a problem. And that's, I think some of the problem is people, they're chasing this husbandry angle to it. And then, you know, how many people have I gotten emails from? I can't imagine, Ed, you know, of people that are feeding like these small meals to these emeralds. And it's like, man, you're just masking your problem. So.
Right.
Yep.
That's wild. Now, well, let me ask you this though. Like a lot of people are under the impression that, like, you know, because I mean, let's be honest. What should a United States captain born and bred hatchling go for? Not should, but what typically would it go for? Like a northern emerald tree captain born and bred in the United States.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual because they all look different. You know, the more markings they have on them and the higher white they are, usually typically the higher the price point is, you know. And then it's kind of crazy, but then the anaconda and the patternless tend to go for more than just like a low marking on a northern. So it has a lot to do, I think, with the parents and what they look like, because that also kind of gives you a little bit on like what this animal could possibly produce. But, you know, one of the things that I've learned, and, you know, all the big breeders will always mention, you know, you want to start out with the nicest one you can get because, you know, like Alan was saying, you know, they're going to be 50% better than the parents. There are going to be some that aren't, you know, so there's always that little ratio there where, you know, if you don't start with a really nice pair, it's going to take a long time to produce something that, you know, and not everybody's after the same stuff either. So there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, if you look at Ed and some of the stuff that he's producing, it's like, that's like years and years of like the dude counting white scales on the animal. And like, this is within the top 50%, bottom 50%, you know, like really thinking about, hey, what am I going to do next? You know?
Yeah.
And
that's dedication.
Yep.
But I would do that too. I mean, if it really comes down to that, yeah, counting those damn white scales, I'm bet your ass I'm gonna be counting them because that matters. It puts them in a different bracket to you. You know what I mean? So, And if someone asks you, well, hey, what's the why is that? You could just simply say, well, because I fucking physically counted the white scales, and that's how I knew.
Yeah, I don't do that necessarily. Yeah, but I'm not that good.
Would
But
you ever
yeah,
do that,
so-
Steven?
What's that?
Oof.
Would you ever come down to you counting white scales if you got yourself a nice emerald clutch or clutch? My bad. Hey, can we tell?
I don't know.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Steven. Sorry.
I'm not sure. You know, if I felt like it was necessary, yeah. But otherwise, I feel like I would avoid getting the magnifying glass out and going 1, 2, 3. If I could avoid it.
Yeah.
I could see myself.
Until you see someone produce something insane, you're like, well, maybe there's something behind that.
Right.
Now, at what point were you like starting to get more than 1 liter a year? Because I mean, typically, do you get 1 liter a year? Like, how do you plan your projects when it comes to that, Ryan?
Well, I kind of, you have your projects that you want to really work, right?
Right.
But they don't always agree with what you want to have going on. You have to swap out males, and I mean, sometimes I don't know. I just get lucky. To be honest, it's
Right.
like, oh, we'll throw them together, and if that works, great. If not, there's next year. So, I didn't have a litter last year. The female seemed to be progressing in the right way, but I never saw ovulation. I was like, oh man, I hope I was just out of town or something and I missed it. But she just reabsorbed everything, and I was like, man, because it's a wild caught animal that I've had probably like 5 years, about 5 years now, and she's really nice. One of the things I look for in northerns is connecting bands, but then how wide the bands are as well, because the width of the band is really tough to get on a lot of the northerns. I picked the connecting band part up from Ed because that's what he always looked for. But then, the Willy line stuff, they really have their nice wide banding. And I mean, that line pretty much speaks for itself. So that's something that I'm always looking for. But
all right. I'm glad you brought it up, Miss Willy line, man. Legendary stuff. And Steven has some of that as well, right? Reptech. Where it has Miss Willy.
Yeah, we got 3 females that have Miss Willy line lineage.
So tell us a little bit more.
The male from Ryan, of course.
Right. Tell us more about this Miss Willy line, if you don't mind, Ryan, so people could get a better understanding.
Yeah. So most people know Rico Wilder. If I went back and started everything over again, I would have bought as many babies from that Miss Willy line as I could and grew them up myself. And I think, for one, that's one of the things to think about is it's really tough. Marcel Mendes has always told me, like, I don't really buy adults. I buy babies and grow them up. A lot of these older animals, they just don't really adapt well when they're older to the newer environment. And I've definitely found that true as well. And so, like, if I went back, I would probably literally, like Magnus over in Sweden.
Yeah,
he's got
Magnus.
I mean, just crazy. So he's got some stuff from the 09 Willy litter, and that was Miss Willy back to her son, which people are always carrying on, like wild caught animals don't ever run into their brother in the wild and breed, but whatever. Yeah. And so it's just crazy when you line breed some of this stuff what you can get. And he has animals that are a perfect example. You look at that 09 Willy that Rico produced. Right. It's insane what some of those northerns look like. And most people are like, oh, those are crosses for sure. There's no way. And it's just their banding is extremely wide and they're really white to the head. But Miss Willy was originally brought in through Paul Lord as a wild caught animal. And it's what we would identify as new locale these days. But back then, he said it came from Guyana, where most of the new locale is coming from Suriname. And so I don't I think a lot of times people see head spots on animals, and he's one of them. But and they think, you know, it's a trait of a certain region. But you know, I'm seeing Ed produce a lot of basins with markings on their head, and you know, he's got pictures of some of his northerns that back in the day had head spots as well. So it's interesting. It seems like the more white they're putting down and the more pattern they have, the more it starts showing up on the head. So I don't know if it's necessarily like a locale trait or like a small group that are confined by territory. You know, like, I don't know, large land masses where they don't really move around a lot. There's line breeding. I mean, can you say that animals in the wild don't line breed? I don't think so. So I don't, you know, there's a lot of speculation, and it's odd to me that back then in like the 90s, she would come in from Guyana and look like that. And then some of the Suriname animals are looking like they are. So, but you know, we don't really know a lot about emeralds in general. You know, a lot of the Corallus books that are coming out, you know, that everyone's like, what, where's that? I've never even seen anything like that. Is that a cross? Like, is that a new? So, you know, the cool thing about the chondros is, you know, they're going out and really learning the locales and like what the differences are between them. Right. And we just really haven't delved in that way with the emeralds. And I just don't think enough people are working with them. You know, the Bushmaster Farm is really big on the whole chondro community in a lot of these localities that they've learned about. And there's really not been anybody like that for the emerald side of stuff. So,
yeah.
Well, hopefully that's what conservation Carl's getting his job done over there in Brazil. I hope. So let's see what happens. You never know, right? Have you gotten any touch with him at all? Have you heard from him?
Not recently. Yeah, he's kind of fallen off the map. I heard he got COVID in Brazil, and then I kind of haven't heard from him since. But
I heard he's swollen now. I heard he did some time in Brazil prison. He's fucking pretty swollen. But anyways, hopefully we'll see him back again sometime soon.
I think it was like wildlife trafficking, and like it was just a mistake. With the language barrier was there, so they locked him up anyway.
No, what's crazy is, man, there's so much stuff to learn about emeralds, and you're right, Ryan. Like, and a lot of stuff that I've learned, or what I know, is stuff I've learned off your posts, Steven's posts, and a lot of people off the Amazon Emerald page. Now, this right here, this is what we're talking about, right? The Miss Willy line. Is this kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're speaking about right here?
No, that's him. That's him right sitting next to me. That's so actually
there's no Miss Willy line in this right here?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It says it on your post. Yeah. It says, oh, okay. Oh, nope, you're right. It says I'll be able to add to the hygiene. Okay, You're right. Fuck.
Yeah, so that's the Miss Willy had a lot of the head spots as well, and the larger markings. And that, so I was looking for similar traits. That's an unrelated wild caught pair that I've had for, let's see now, 4 years. I can't remember when I got those two, but yeah. So here's what I'm talking about, like the adults. So if you look on the right, that's the female. The male's on the left with the head spots.
Right.
That female is really, really grayed out, and the markings aren't very high to her head as far as the white goes. They are there. But then the nice thing about her is her markings on her lower half are actually stronger than his. They're a lot wider. And so I'm like, wow, you know, this is a little bit of, I wouldn't say the best of both worlds, but it's nice to have that wide markings on the bottom half of her. Really helped in the babies. But, you know, the babies have a lot of the same markings as mom, where, you know, they're real grayed out. There's some that do have the nice white, but even Forrest, you know, the baby that was produced from these two animals, he doesn't have high white to his head like his dad. His markings are way bigger and bolder, but they're not, I mean, they are white, but not like this guy.
Right.
So.
Right. But here we go. This is what we're talking about then. Boom.
Yeah, that's
There we
Willy's.
Oh my God, bro. This right here is the dream. To me personally, this is I mean, and what's impressive about these Miss Willy lines, they're big snakes, right? Like they're big, right? They're girthy and they're pretty big for the most part. Like, are they the bigger side of Northerns, or like what's the deal with the Miss Willy lines? Because I mean, what I've saw at RepTech, like
It has to be grown up too.
they're gigantic. They're gigantic. What was that? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying a lot has to do with how you grow them up.
Okay.
You know, some are going to just be chow hounds from the get go, and they're going to grow, you know, quite a bit faster and larger than some of the more timid animals that, you know, they'll eat, but they're not like you open the tub and they're ready to snatch your face. So a lot has to do with the individual animal and like how you grow them up as well. But they do tend to be a lot larger, the Willy line stuff. Although I had an 09 male that is actually very small, and he was a brother. I always forget if Magnus has a male or a female. You'd think I'd know, but so basically his sibling, and he's a lot smaller than any of the other 09 stuff I've seen. So, you know, there are, like, so to speak, runts of the litter. And there'll be some that are smaller.
Now, I remember I've spoken to you about this a while ago about like the head differences between the male and the female, right? The
Right.
female's head looks like a fucking alien, right? So I mean, that's the female's to the left, I'm assuming, right?
It's actually to the right.
What the fuck? That's a humongous head for a male. Are you kidding me? Are you
No,
sure?
So I'm sorry, the female left and the male's on the right. Looking at that picture.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, what is happening right now? It's like,
so the one with all the yellow dots, that's the female.
right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now that head is flexing heavily over the head next to it, like, you know. But even the male's head looks fucking swole too. Like, it just doesn't look like puffy.
And these animals were actually over conditioned.
Over conditioned. Can you talk about that?
They're actually overweight.
Oh, damn.
So the male on the right, if you look, the way his like profile is, you know, he's kind of got more of a peak, and the female is more rounded. I mean, they had lost a lot of weight in this picture, but you know, emeralds are really gaining a lot of weight in captivity, and if you're not spraying them and keeping them active, and they're not defecating, you're going like the 3 meals and defecation routine, they'll really pack a ton of weight on. And, you know, one of the things that we always talk about is, you know, if you're feeding and the animal's digesting and they have a slow metabolism, and then you go feed again, they never really have to move for that food. Right. So it's important to keep them active. Sometimes you can stimulate them just with the meals and how you're, you know, how often you're feeding. I kind of feel like inconsistency is kind of a good thing for them. So it's not like, oh, every 2 weeks they're getting this, or every, you know, week and a half, you know, so it is nice to kind of switch it up a little bit. But you don't want to get them so overweight that they're not doing what they normally would do. And so you'll get a lot of constipation, a lot of, you know, you have to take them out, get them in the shower, and get them moving to go to the bathroom and stuff. And you kind of really run into some problems that way. But
yeah, I'm laughing because everyone's making like butt jokes and shit about like how, you know, how perfectly the fucking heads look and shit like that.
Yeah,
like they're cracking. It's just got cracking up. But I mean,
but yeah, it shows you it's crazy how big they can get when they're over conditioned. And then if you look at some of the thinner animals that are first coming in, like the difference between their head structure and like those two that you just showed. Right. So like go back to that picture before.
The first one, this one.
Yep. So they do have decent lobes, but not like the other two. And if you look at them, you know, the peak, their profile is a little bit more peaked up. There's more of a point to it than, it's not so rounded. So it's kind of crazy, you know, everyone always wants to know, like, well, how much should my emerald weigh? And I feel like that's really tough to answer because you don't know how large the animal is. You don't know how long they are. You don't know like what their background is. So I think it's better to look at the animal and kind of understand like what good weight looks like on an emerald and what overweight looks like on an emerald, so that you kind of know the difference and can kind of
good weight, overweight.
Yeah, right.
Good weight. So firm booty, fat booty.
Yeah, and if you notice the on those first two, the female does have more condition to her than the male. And, you know, I think that's okay. The males, you don't have to condition nearly as much because, you know, they're not going through, you know, 140 to 160 day gestation period. So,
dude, my female's head's more like this right now, so I'm gonna chill out. Thanks for letting me know. I'm being honest. Yeah, her head's flexing right now like this. Like it looks like my wife's butt. I'm not joking.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough, right? You don't want to be that fat guy eating potato chips in front of the TV all the time.
No, my guy's good, but the girls. What about if the girl's head's pretty chunky?
Yeah, I think if they have good weight going into, you know, their gestation, that's good. But I don't know. I would keep them that heavy all the time. It's just not healthy for them.
Now, let me ask you this. What's the good way to kind of like ease up on a snake's diet? Like if you got a snake and it's like, you could tell it's pretty girthy, it's kind of big. Like how would you kind of slow down its like its schedule of eating? Would you just kind of put it on a fast for a while, or would you just feed it smaller meals?
I don't think fasting is a problem. Yeah.
You don't think fasting is a problem, you said? So how long would you go then? Like what would be a good fasting period for you?
Well, you know, say you're feeding every 2 to 3 weeks, you do like once a month or like, you know, every 40 days or something like that. But, you know, I think the thing to realize with these guys is like, as long as they're hydrated, that's almost a bigger problem that I've noticed is, you know, if they're not drinking well, not being active, you know, you can have I've seen some really crazy thin emeralds. And, you know, they'll literally a whole year go and then start feeding for whatever reason, whether it's a technique or new keeper or, you know, they just weren't acclimated yet. And they don't really lose a ton of condition. So it's really tough to drop weight off of them without really like seriously fasting them. But like I said, you know, they'll sometimes fast themselves. You know, some of these males go off food when they're breeding anyways. And I've noticed where, you know, like the females are interested in food when they're paired up, but sometimes the males are like, no, I don't really want that. So, so yeah, it's a little tough, and their metabolism is so slow that it is tough to get them to lose weight in any fast manner. So.
Now, what about like feeding an emerald like a bird, or it's not a bird, but like a chick or quail or something like that? Because I do see people randomly showing pictures of them doing that. But like, is that something you recommend in a diet, or does it not hurt? What do you think?
Well, so I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. When I first started working with them, you know, that's always the big thing that, you know, oh, they're big bird eaters. And, you know, I think they're opportunistic. If a bird comes by, for sure, they're going to snap out whatever they can get. Really, mammals, you know, there's like some really large pictures of emeralds with large meals in their bellies and stuff. And I'm like, that's probably a possum. There's not much bigger than that. But, or, you know, depending on what area it is, I'm not sure all the different types of mammals and stuff they might normally feed on. But so it really can range as far as that goes. The thing with emeralds is the birds, you know, there's been research papers and documented medical studies that show that they can be infected with chlamydia from birds. So, you know, is it a good idea? You know, it depends where the bird's from, you know, but if you had to err on the side of caution, I would say no. I think it is helpful to vary diet a little bit, either size wise, and we're always kind of limited on our captive diets that we have, and it's not the same as what they typically would see in the wild,
Right.
which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. But there's always stuff to consider on both sides of things. So
yeah, I even saw someone. I think was it on Facebook? Was someone feeding their emerald like a piece of fillet fish? Like it was like tilapia or something like that. Like literally, like
yeah,
I think. Did you see that? Was that on Facebook? Was always on Facebook?
I don't know. Like seriously though, you've seen some of these feeding responses on these emeralds. It's like, dude, if something is warm and it's in front of their face, they're gonna just snatch it, and then maybe figure out what it is later. So,
yeah, they'll for sure wrap and kill it, and then they'll be like, oh well, I don't think I want to eat this.
Yeah. Oh, I don't eat this type.
Yeah. Too much hair for me.
Yeah.
Now, what about like feeding emerald a mice versus a rat? Like obviously, if you could get your emerald to be on rats, that's the route you'd want to take, right?
I think it does definitely. I mean, once you get an adult animal, you can't really sustain them on mice. I mean, you might be able to feed them like every so often mice, but you would have to feed them pretty frequently. You can't get a large enough mouse that'll sustain an emerald, in my opinion. Is it bad to feed them mice? I mean, there's nothing there's a little bit more fat content. I mean, Steven can talk to this as far as the difference in rodents, but
right.
There's a little bit of a difference there. I don't necessarily like, oh, mice are horrible, for emeralds. It depends on what it is and how it's being fed. If it's varied, it's no problem. But if you're trying to sustain your emerald on mice, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to feed them a lot. And I feel like what I've kind of noticed is, you need to make that meal count. Their metabolism is so slow that, if you're just constantly feeding them, we're going to run into our same problem that we were talking about before, where they are not moving because they don't have to look for food. You're just giving it to them. Right. And so then you kind of start down that road. So it's like you just have to kind of take it all in and really try and understand that, like, okay, well, is this animal acting normal, or is it based on what I'm doing? And kind of keep that in mind as you're, growing them up. So, but like, babies, I'm usually starting on hoppers. I don't like seeing pinky posts, and it's not because there's necessarily anything wrong with the pinky, but there's not much to it. And, a lot of the chondro keepers are like, hey, the sooner you can get chondros off of pinkies, the better. There's just not a lot to them. And I think you start running into some health problems and developmental problems just because they're not getting, you really need to supplement that pinky or something. So I've noticed it's better. I mean, they're large, if you compare them to chondros, they're twice as big when they're born, and they can definitely take, for sure, a hopper, fuzzy, if you want to be a little bit more careful. But, as soon as I can get them over to rats, I usually try to do that. And that's just to kind of get them set up for, what's down the road. But
Steven, can you kind of maybe elaborate the whole difference, like between the nutrients in a mouse versus a rat, like from what you know?
Yeah, I mean, in general, mice are kind of like the turkey of rodents. They're much leaner, kind of less dense than a rat, lower fat. But I think in the whole mouse versus rat debate, that's an easier one to have with green trees or something, because green trees are the size where like a large mouse or a jumbo mouse is a suitable meal. If we're looking at at a species like an emerald tree boa, where a medium rat is a suitable meal for an adult, or let's say that's 100 115 grams average, you would need to feed 4 or 5 large mice. If you're just looking grams for grams, or 3 or 4 jumbo mice, and the jumbo mice are a kind of a fattier, potentially less healthy way to go about it. So the way I see it, unless you have that patience to sit there and let an emerald miss at a large mouse a bunch with a tiny little prey item for it, and then feed them 4 in a row. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't try to go with rats over mice.
Right. Okay. But then, like you said, Ryan, you start your babies off the hoppers, right? For like about how many meals would you say?
Kind of just depends. If I'm worried, I'll just keep them on that and maybe feed them more often. You kind of just tailor it to the animal and how they're doing. Like some of them grow quick and you're like, oh, I get them off right away, And others, it's like, no, it takes them a little bit of time. They're a little bit slower at stuff. And so, I'm not really necessarily scared of going that next meal size up, but, it's just all in consideration. You feed a larger meal, you want to wait maybe a little bit longer. So smaller meal more frequently might be better than a large one, not as often. So you just have to feel out your animal. And some of them are, super active. They do great. And so that wouldn't be a problem. But some of the ones that take a little bit more time and they're probably just going to be smaller animals in general. Just need to keep all that stuff in consideration. But the other side of it is not all of them will want mice. Some of them will want rats. So I don't know. I feel like rat pinks are maybe a little better than mouse pinkies, but some of them, if they won't go mice, you got to go rats, and they'll take rats without taking mice. So it's like each litter is a little different, and you kind of just have to run them through the feeding trials. Like, what are they interested in? What aren't they interested in? And kind of, it's tough. You got to tailor a little bit to each animal. But
hey, Ryan, on this show, what I like to do within an hour, after an hour, I like to take a caller in and talk on the subject, right? And
yeah, for sure.
we have a list of emails and stuff like this. And I went ahead and hand selected this caller or this person who wants to join in tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Marshall Mendes.
Yeah.
What's up, dudes?
What's up, brother?
What's up?
Marshall? How you doing, buddy?
How's it going?
Good, man. How are
Pretty
you?
good.
I'm doing well.
Living the dream.
Chilling in that new snake room.
Yeah, buddy. Just finished feeding everybody from my rat house. It's about like 5 steps that way. So life's good right now.
Heck
Yeah, look at that. Your Wi-Fi seems to be a lot better than the other snake room for sure.
What's that?
Your Wi-Fi seems to be a lot more solid in this.
Oh
snake.
yeah. This house has really good. We got lucky, man. We got badass internet here. So
That's cool.
Hey, Marshall,
It's
thank
good.
you so much. Thank you so much for hanging out, man. Like I said, I had to have you come hang out with Ryan because Stephen will also back me up on this. 2 of the biggest inspirations for us would always talk about would be Marshall, hands down, and Ryan. And I have go to any Unfiltered podcast and you'll hear him speak about himself. So to have you 2 on here and then even have Kush to be a part of this means not only a lot to me, but I'm sure it means a lot to Forrest. So thank you so much for being a part of this, Marshall. It means a lot.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and
Glad
I'm
to
sure
be here.
I'm sure you have a lot to chime in about, man. We're talking about, obviously Emerald Tree Boas, the beautiful Miss Willy line that Ryan has. But right now we're talking about, what were we just talking about? I know, was it the dieting? Mice versus rats.
Establishing babies and diet.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as your experience with establishing babies, what's been like a good, technique or rhythm for you when it comes to just getting your baby emeralds established, or even chondros?
Well, they're completely different, but emeralds to me are way easier to get started. I start them all the same way, live hopper mice, and I would say 95% of them will take that right off the bat. The other 5%, I'll try different things with them, but most of that 5% will end up, I'll cis feed them once or twice, and then they take off. So they're, as far as getting them going, they're way easier than chondros. The live hopper seems to work, and then I don't have any problems switching them over to frozen thawed. Everything that's 6 or 8 months or older. Out of all the ones that I've produced, I've never had one get stuck on live. So I don't see any issue getting them started on live. Chondros are a whole different, that's a whole different ball game, more headache, and
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just
Small.
stick to emeralds. We'll stick to emeralds for now. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Be depressed. I don't because okay, one thing I'm glad you guys are both, all three of you here, because I want to know all your guys' opinion on this. But you see people who feed obviously a lot of frozen thawed to their animals, but a lot of them soak them in fucking water, and a lot of them just feed them like clean dry. What do you guys like to do when it comes to that? You go first, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I soak all mine. The emeralds, any added hydration to it is always a plus. So, but it's weird because some of them are real picky and they're like, what is this wet thing? So I've noticed where like some babies, they almost like it dry. So I don't know if it's just that one litter, but yeah, I've had that experience too. So, but yeah.
What about you, Steven?
So, for us here, obviously we're 50 feet away from a big rodent barn. So, we're just going to feed fresh euthanized. So, unless something has to eat a chick or, something like that, they're always dry, probably fed off 5 to 10 minutes after they were euthanized. So
that's probably the best way, honestly.
Fresh kill.
It's pretty funny. It kind of shows how these snakes get used to this routine of captivity. If I euthanize the rodents and I wait like more than 20 minutes, I start to get into that rigor mortis stage a little bit, the snakes won't look twice at them. I'm like, I went through all this work, I got a little sidetracked, and now you won't eat because your rodent isn't perfectly fresh.
It's stiffy. I don't like it stiffy.
Yeah. These snakes here are all very very spoiled that way. So
I bet. What about you, Marshall?
What I do right now is, since most of my adults are on frozen thawed, is the day that I'm gonna feed them, I'll put them out before I go to work, let them thaw out to room temperature, and then when I get ready to feed them that night, I'll put them in hot water for 10 minutes or so, just to heat them up. And all of my stuff, none of it has a problem taking anything that's wet. Now that I've got this rodent building and I'm going to start ramping up my own production, that maybe will change. I'll probably go to fresh killed. But I've always done I've always soaked them and fed them wet. I figure like the extra hydration is not going to hurt anything,
Now, the other thing that I heard, because I feed them dry, but then the homie Socrates, like I always kind of give them like, I roast them every now and then, and I would always like ask him like, dude, why do you dunk your fucking rats and fucking feed your, feed your snake? Like my snakes don't want to eat a soggy piece of shit. And he was like, well, it doesn't hurt for the hydration, right? And I'm just giving him shit. But then I also heard someone say somewhere on Facebook about you wanting to soak it because it softens their nails or something like that. Have any of you heard about that? Or like soaking will soften their nails if you soak it, because apparently people have lost their snakes from either, oh, there goes Marshall. He got over that. He was like, fuck this topic.
He was like, that's stupid.
Next thing you know, you'll be talking about painting their nails.
He's like, you brought me here for this shit? You just dipped. But have you heard of people like say that, their snake ate the rat ass first, and then like because of that, the nails fucking scratched the insides or something like that? I mean, it could just be bullshit, but
no,
I've
lost a snake to that before.
Here we go. Let's talk about that. Go ahead, Marshall.
I have lost a snake to, who knows if it ate it backwards or what, like I don't sit there and watch every snake as it eats, right. But it was the albino chondro, the one that I had in 2014 that lived to she was, about 2 years old, and she had this weird intestinal blockage, and after we did surgery trying to take it out, and after the surgery we did necropsy, and it was a rodent claw that was stuck in her GI tract, and it just was acting as like a catch. Anything that went hair or whatever was just kind of getting caught up there, and so who knows if that was the result of her eating it backwards, or if it was just bad luck or what, who knows, but that is that's what killed that one.
Jesus Christ.
That's terrible.
That's terrible. Yeah, we
Yeah.
started talking about chondros, right? Okay, that makes sense. Now, okay, so let's talk about the albino, man. Like, you just had a clutch with an impossible chance of hitting albino, and did you?
Yeah, maybe. I have not. I haven't said anything about it or posted anything about it, but
Way to go,
yeah.
MJ.
What would it be? I didn't know.
And you wonder why people come on your podcast anyways.
Say what?
You just out them right here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Coolest reptile podcast in the world, man.
So yes, there is another albino. Of course, it's the runty one of the litter. It was actually posted a picture of it in like one person that I posted on the thread. They sent me a DM and they caught it, but only one person did. It was the one that I posted on the Morelia Virtus Facebook group that had its umbilical cord tied in a knot, and so it absorbed very little yolk. And it's about half the size of the other ones. So, we'll see if it makes it. Looks healthy otherwise, just small. So the first ones from that clutch have just started shedding. The first one actually shed today. Right. So I'll start trying to feed those guys, maybe tonight. But, we'll see how it does. So I'm not getting my hopes up. And but yes, there is another one.
Can we be honest real quick? Because you weren't getting your hopes up at all, period. I mean, I remember when the eggs were dimpling and they're due any day. And I was like, what? There were 7 opportunities, right? How many eggs?
I started off with, I think, 11 or no, 14. But there was like 5 or 6 that were obviously slugs from day one. Okay. I stuck them in the incubator just in case. And then there was another 2 eggs that she had kicked out of the beehive. They looked good, but I put them in the incubator too, and both of them were ended up bad. So they can tell. Not always, but in this case, she was right. They were no good. So those didn't go on to hatch, and then I had like 3 that were dead in the egg. So ended up with 5 total out of probably 9 good eggs. So not great, but that's chondros. I'll take it.
You know what? I'll take something else. Who called that shit? Go and tell him, Marshall. Who called it?
Yeah, you called it. You called it.
Yes.
So the one good thing is that I know I've got another female 100% het now, and mom's recovered and she's doing great. So like everything else with this project, just keep plugging away at it. So
yeah, that is huge. Congrats, man. Good shit.
Thank you.
Hard work pays off, man. And I know you were due for that clutch for sure. And like you said, I appreciate you being humble about it because, fuck, they're baby chondros. Who knows? Like, there's a long road. There's still a long road yet to go. You know what I mean? So, and, also, too, with your experience with chondros, Ryan, because you work with Arus, right? You have an Aru pair, right? And just that one pair?
Nice ones, too. Yeah.
Really gorgeous ones.
And Beox, too, right?
Yeah. I have a few.
Okay.
Yeah,
how many do you have?
Talk about it.
No, I want to talk.
I have 3 Aru. One's a younger one. It's actually a female. But yeah. So kind of crazy story. I actually got a clutch out of those Aru. I incubated them, and it was really close to term. I'm trying to think. It was like 12 14 days left in incubation. And I actually was going out of town, so I was worried about him, right? And so I took him to a friend's house, and he's got like this crazy rock, I always joke, and I'm like, oh, man, I got to go to the whoop section, through the whoop section like I'm on a dirt bike to get to your house. It's just like, and it's like, what? And so I'm like, oh, I'll just go slow. Everything will be fine. I also had a pair of pancake eggs in that incubator as well. And I thought maybe it was just the chondros, but when I cut the pancake egg, it was the same exact thing. Their face was just all deformed. They were alive in the egg, but they never hatched. And I feel like, man, if I wouldn't have moved them during that, whatever time point in their development, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So I never ended up with any of those from that clutch, which was really a bummer because, you know, I was looking for a male for that female that's really nice. And, you know, it's always hard to know, like, is it going to pass those genes on or not? But so that was a bummer. So I was going to try again this year, and they've copulated a few times. I haven't really seen ovulation on her yet, but we'll keep plugging away.
Arus are definitely my favorite locality, hands down. Nice big adult Arus are the best.
Yeah, they're really cool.
The true blue, a true blue snake. Does it come from an Aru or does it come from a strong? I forget.
No, because Arus are only yellow babies. So,
but Arus could also have blue in them too, right? Or am I tripping? Isn't there
yeah, no, they have a lot of blue.
Yeah. Okay. Crazy. Okay. But then, like, you know, you also see pictures of, like, you know, real blue, like all blue snakes. What makes that all blue snake?
Well, it's either hormonal, which a lot of Arus do go hormonal blue.
Okay.
But, you know, most of the time when you see a snake that's real blue like that was a yellow baby, it's hormonal. But most of the captive stuff, you know, the super blues and the true blues and all that, those always start off as red babies.
Okay. Now, Ryan, are you prefer yellow Neo or prefer red Neo guy? What's your partake on that?
Yeah, if we're talking about, well, I guess it depends what you're breeding, but I mean, the red stuff it always seems to be way cooler looking at the end. That's not always true, but yeah. I'm still kind of a rookie when it comes to chondros. This guy, where is he? Down here. He's a man when it comes to that stuff.
Okay. Well, I mean, Marshall, do you fuck with the yellow Neos at all, or are you just strictly red? I mean, what do you think?
I prefer the red ones just because, you know, with the bloodlines that I work with, those always end up being the nicer ones. So over the years, I've just, you know, all my holdbacks have been red, and I do pop out a yellow baby occasionally. But I would say here in the last like 5 or 6 years, probably 90% of what I produce is red. I do like to get a few yellows every now and then just to have some variety, but I think it's mainly just because, you know, I've held back more reds over the years, and that just tends to be, you know, when you breed 2 red animals together, you're going to get more reds. So that's why I do like some yellows. You know, I like to have a few just for variety, but I prefer the reds, you know.
Respect. Yeah. Now, I want to revert back to the emeralds real quick, guys, because one thing I do want your guys' both, you know, input on was we were talking about Steven last year, how, and it's not just Steven, I had conversations with Socrates about this where, you know, damn near could have been an ovulation, or, you know, maybe it was, who knows, but then nothing after that, you know, like just, there goes Marshall. He'll come back. But like, yeah, because this is for you too, obviously, Ryan. So, you know, how many times have you dealt with that yourself, Ryan? Meaning you had a pair going, you know, you've seen locks, everything looked well, you see swelling, could have been an ovulation, but then nothing happened after that. Like, and do you know what I'm talking about, Marshall, or do you want me to repeat it?
I kind of cut out. You kind of cut out and lost everybody there for a second. But I was listening earlier. I think you guys were talking about that. You know, I have a basin, this female right up here, that earlier this year, I didn't know what was going on with her. Like, she kind of swelled up, and I thought it was maybe, you know, I'm kind of sensitive to the intestinal blockage thing after the mental scarring with the albino chondro. So she was swelled up and looking really, really, you know, just thicker than I thought she should, and I almost took her to the vet. And then, you know, I started thinking about it, and I had a male with her, and she just had like a really prolonged, I don't know if it's what the correct term for it is. I don't know if it's just, you know, building follicles or you know, whatever the case may be, but she was swelled up for like probably a good solid 2 to 3 weeks. And I was also talking to Socrates, just because he kind of went through something similar with one of his basin females, like maybe last year, or the year before, where she swelled up, and I was like, every day I would think, okay, surely this is the ovulation, and then the next day she'd be even bigger, and then the next day she'd be even bigger, and then that like I said, that process lasted for several weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and then it was over, and she's kind of swelled. The swelling went down, and you can tell she's gravid, or at least I hope she is, but I've never had them like go through anything like that and then go off feed and then not produce something. I mean, in general, chondros and emeralds, every female that I've ever owned that has been a good feeder that has stopped feeding is either sick or gravid. 100% of the time, if it's a good ravenous feeder usually, and they're not showing any sign of illness, and you've been breeding them, that's your sign that she's going to lay something. And maybe slugs, but you're going to get slugs or a good clutch if they go off feed.
Okay. What about you, Ryan?
Well, I was kind of talking about the one female that I had, and yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head about her because it's like the same thing Marcel's talking about, where it's like building, and then no ovulation. And I'm like, did I just miss it? And then they go off feed. And then all of a sudden, after a few months, she's wanting to eat again. And I'm like, what the heck?
That's fucking annoying.
And of course, it's, it's like he's saying, it's always the nicest ones that are the heartbreakers. Like, come on, throw me a bone, And, so I've had that, and then I've also had where, I thought it was ovulation, because a lot of these guys or females, they get so huge, you're like, whoa, that's an ovulation for sure, and you get all excited about it, and then like a week later, all of a sudden you're like, is there a mass or what's going on? This thing's gonna blow up. So, and it's real localized in one small area, so it's always really crazy to see the difference, but. So I haven't had a ton happen. It's just that one female. So they either go or they don't. And then there was that one instance that I had. So, but I'm still learning for sure. I haven't been doing this that long, but.
Now, with both of you guys keeping chondros and emeralds, I mean, we talk about nidovirus all the time, right? But how important or how at risk are emeralds having nidovirus compared to chondros?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. You don't hear about it much in our group for sure. But I mean, I think it's really cool to see like keepers start to think that way. My personal opinion is that there needs to be more vets behind the screening of it. It just takes the whole quality control out of it, and they have a better understanding of like disease, what's positive really, what's negative really, what's false. There's so many different aspects to it that the typical keeper, the lay keeper, kind of doesn't really understand. So, but yeah, or people just don't share. I mean, I haven't noticed anything, but that doesn't mean anything either,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Speak. What do you think?
Or they could just be asymptomatic carriers or something like that. If you have them within a python collection, or I feel like who's going to test their? I mean, someone probably has, but I feel like if you're testing for nidovirus, hypothetical person, you're going to test your pythons. You might not test your boas, especially if they have no respiratory symptom whatsoever. It's probably a lack of sample size more than them potentially not being susceptible to it.
Could be that, and it could be like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say that it could be that it affects them differently or doesn't affect them at all. Like, what is the disease that boas get that with the stargazing and all that?
Inclusion body disease.
IBD. Yeah. So I used to read, like, when that was kind of going around, that the test for that was you would get a baby, baby normal ball python and stick it in the cage with your boa. And if it had it, it would like kill the ball python within days. So, it either affects them differently or they're just not susceptible to it. People just, people are careful, people are real careful these days. As far as I was listening to John Irby the other day and how he's got like different sets of feeding tools and different gloves for every snake. And
Yep.
I mean, so if nothing else, I think people are definitely more aware of it. But yeah, you don't really hear about really any boas having it. I don't think. I think it's mainly a python thing. I mean, I have heard of like a ball python nido virus. I don't know if it's the same thing that we have with chondros, but you don't really hear about it with boas. At least I haven't.
I mean, I've heard about it with corn snakes. I've heard about it with blue-tongued skinks. But who's to say that is the same strain that you'd see in the chondro or a ball python or a Burmese python?
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep your scope broad. The more you narrow it down and look for, you're almost chasing the disease rather than and treatment and what to do than actually looking at the overall health of the animal. I mean, it's important that if it affects them, yeah, for sure. But then are you also overlooking something else? So that's where you need that clinical knowledge and background that veterinarians provide to really know which avenue to take, So.
Yep. Now, also, with Marshall being here, Marshall works with not only with emeralds, but I mean, is it mostly 50-50 crosses that you have going on? Or let's talk about your 50-50 crosses real quick, because I have questions about that, Marshall.
Okay. I probably have about, I'm going to say maybe a dozen emeralds total, 10 to 12, and all but 3 are crosses of some sort, either 50-50 or I have some 75-25s that I produced and held back, or 50-50s. And then I've got a 1.2 basins.
Okay, so basically almost any emerald project you have going on has some sort of basin line in it or something is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't have any pure northerns anymore. I had the one Miss Willy line female that I had that I used to produce most of my crosses, that made the really crazy, insane looking ones. When I bred her to a 50-50, she unfortunately never recovered from her last litter, and I lost her probably, 2 years ago or so. So she was the last like pure northern that I had, and everything else that I have now is either a cross or basin. Okay.
And then Ryan, I know you have basins, right? You have some of Ed's bloodline floating around your collection, and those are raise ups, right? They're juveniles or subadults. How big are those?
Yep. Yeah. I'm blanking on years, but yeah, I have 3.2. My male, dang, I think he's like 5 or 6. I got to look on his tag, but so he's definitely a breeding age, and my female's still not really ready to go yet.
Okay. Have you had any projects sorry, my internet got fucked up. Was that mine? I don't know. Like
that would be too.
Okay. All right. Anyways, what is your whole plan with the basins, Ryan? Would you say, like, what are you looking to do with those in the long run? Are you looking to get those mixed in with your northerns at some point, or are you looking just to keep those pure?
I'll probably keep them separate. Yeah. Although every time I see this guy produce some of his crosses, it's like, what? I have a little line. I could do that. So, but each their own. It's tough because there's so much cool stuff that you want to get involved with, but then it's like, how much time do you have? Oh no, another project. I mean, I think that's why Ed sells a lot of his nice stuff, because he's like, I don't need another project. I got like 20 animals, so you kind of just have to fine tune it to what you like, or what works for you. So.
Okay. Now, with your experience, Marshall, pairing like the basins with the northern and then just pairing them to themselves, like northern to northern, basin to basin, like is there a big jump or difference that you're seeing when you're crossing the two?
Not really. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've ever produced a pure northern clutch or litter. I don't think I have. I think everything that I've ever, because I really only ever had that one pure northern Willy line female, and I never had any northern males. Actually, I did have a northern male. Did you get him, Ryan? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still have one.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
And that was a merino. He was a merino line, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I was like,
yeah, I think.
Oh, you're selling him? Where do I send the check?
That shows how small. That shows how small this circle is of what the fuck we're talking about. Okay, just so you know, it just so happens
Ryan,
that what Marshall's talking about, Ryan has it. What do you go
Ryan, is that the male that sired the baby that we have?
No.
No. Okay.
No. So that one actually has Nikolai in it, mine as well. So.
Okay.
But no, I think the one that I got, that's the one he's talking about is that's from just Ed's old stuff, as far as I know. So
yeah,
that's a good looking snake. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is for sure. I know. I gotta tickle him somewhere special or something, get him going.
Yeah, because he's been in that exact same pose for a long time.
I tried to breed him with that. I did try for pure northerns one time with him and my Willy line female, but he just was not interested.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, I've had him for a little while now, but I haven't really noticed him any interest. You know, I've put him in with the female for a little bit, and yeah, so that's all right. We'll keep plugging away, see what happens.
Yeah,
he's a nice snake regardless. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe you just haven't found the right lady yet.
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna plug away to the next topic, okay? Because this is gonna be one of my favorites. You see it a lot, right? Fucking got this brand new emerald, and I put it in with this gorgeous brand new bioactive vivarium, and fucking and I'm gonna put dart frogs in it, and just go all out. But in real life, realistically, I mean that is real life. People do that, but what's the most thriving way to get an emerald just on the right path, enclosure wise, that you guys all experienced and seems like, look, this is what's advised? You feel like whoever wants to go first.
Well, I would say make sure you have a healthy animal first, and then really whatever works for it. Because MJ, like last night on Unfiltered with Dennis, he was essentially saying that they keep him at the zoo almost in like a bioactive type of way, spraying every single day, exoterras, but that's just what their environment allows for there. And because they have a staff that works with reptiles, they're able to keep up on that. Might be best for you to keep them in a very sterile environment, minimal ventilation, high humidity. If you have a healthy animal, they're very hardy. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer necessarily. That the answer is have a healthy animal, and it's going to thrive. The way I see it, at least.
What about you, Marshall? What do you think about the bioactive setup?
I think people like to talk shit about it. I've personally never done it. I don't get why people get so worked up about it. Like if somebody wants to try it, like obviously there is a way that it can work. Would it work for me keeping, 30 arboreals or whatever I've got here, 40, 50? No, because it's just, one enclosure is just, it's a lot of maintenance and work, like my MO here is different than somebody who's trying to keep an emerald in a bioactive enclosure. I'm not, I like to look at them, but these are not like, they're not like display animals to me. I kind of look at my setup as almost like a farm, where I'm setting things up for efficiency and how easily can I keep everything healthy, keep it clean, and have the animal be as healthy as possible. And for me, that's kind of a more sterile type environment, although, it's not like, some people I see that, like my cages are clean, but they're not like, I don't take them out and bleach them and hose them every time the animal takes a shit, like I've actually, since I've been in this new room, I've started switching everything over from newspaper to mulch. So now all my arboreals are on mulch. Mm-hmm. And since I've done that, haven't had a single bad shed. I don't have to worry about, spraying shit every day. And you tell some people you're keeping them on mulch, like some of these newer chondro experts, they freak out, like, oh God, your shit's gonna get sick and die. Man, for the first 10 or 12 years that I was doing this, I kept everything on mulch. The only reason that I switched is because in my old room, we had a couple of years where we had a really bad drought, and ants would find their way, since it was, it was my basement, so it was part of the room was underground, and I'd come home and there'd be like a fucking 3-inch thick trail of ants from my window into one of my cages, because they'd get in the mulch and they'd want to find the moisture. And so that made me switch everything to newspaper. And, I kept them that way probably for the last, maybe 10 years or so, until here recently. And it's just so much easier to maintain mulch than it is paper to me. You put a couple inches in, you scoop out the dirty part, and then when it's time to when it gets thin, you scoop it all out, hose the cage out, and put new in, and so you're basically doing like a deep clean like every 6 or 8 months. But it's so much easier to spot clean than it is when they, because paper is not absorbent. So when they go on paper and then they crawl through it and they spread it around all over the place and it just gets all over everything. Whereas it seems to be more contained when it's on some kind of a mulch substrate. So all that to say, I'm enjoying that switch that I've made here in the last month.
Ryan, what have you been keeping your animals on?
Well, you're talking about dart frogs. I actually used to keep dart frogs. So when I got into emeralds, I think my one of my cages turned into an emerald enclosure. But I mean, it's like it's like Marcel was saying. It's like it's all about time, right? So if you can manage it, and you have the time to manage it, yeah, there might not necessarily be anything wrong with it. I mean, you can maintain them in a lot of different things as long as you're, keeping within your husbandry parameters that they need. So there's not like a real good answer, because the other side of it is, there's different parts of the country too. So, what works in the desert might not work in Florida, might not work in Alaska, might not be. So there's all these other parameters to think about too. So, yeah.
Even you've been on the cocoa chip now, right? Now you're on the cocoa husk with your arboreals, right? Or you've been with the cocoa husk. Am I wrong?
Well, no, I was so I had a lava rock drainage layer, and sphagnum is what I've used for a long time. And then I have like pothos, or the philodendron, or the little heart-shaped philodendron. That stuff just grows on the backgrounds. It's awesome. But and then now that I've had quite a few more, it's hard to maintain them that way. You're always swapping out sphagnum and trying to bleach or swap out the lava rock. There's a lot of headaches. So I've been doing more paper stuff than what I had before, like butcher paper, kind of like what Gary uses, like that dimple paper works pretty well. But like the same thing. It moves around a lot. It's like you got to pull that whole thing out. And it would be easier if they were on mulch or like sphagnum or something that's going to absorb spot clean. So yeah, it's kind of just depends on what you like and the aesthetic look of the cage too. But
so what's the biggest difference in preparation for a emerald give birth versus a chondro? You know, I know chondro you can put in an egg box, you know, there's or you can and whatnot, but like for an emerald, how do you really prepare for her to give birth?
I think it depends. So Steven's seen my tree monitor enclosure. I mean, what's that thing, like 5.5, 6 foot tall or something? And I had tree monitors in it in Dallas, and then when I moved out here, I moved my emeralds into it, and this thing is huge. Well, I've had a female drop a litter all the way to the ground on like, I think it was cocoa chips or something like that, and they all came out fine.
Okay.
So I think best case scenario is if they're in your, 36 by 24 or whatever your enclosure size is. Most people like to either, remove the top perch so they're not so far. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but
like heat wise, like temp wise, right? Like, isn't there some sort of an adjustment for like the temperature or anything like that? Or what do you like? That's kind of like the biggest thing, right?
Yeah, I think most of us like to keep a radiant heat panel or some kind of heat source going like 85, 88 all the time. And, they'll move in and off the heat as far as that goes. So.
Okay. What about you, Marshall? What do you do as far as like your, if you have a Gravid emerald and she's about to give birth, like what is your routine with the heat and whatnot that's worked for you?
I don't really change anything. I keep all the chondros, all the emeralds are all in the same, kind of same deal. 90 degree hot spot during the day, 365 days a year.
Okay.
And then at night, the panels, heat panels will shut off and it gets down to ambient room temperature, which I control to either, if I'm not cycling, when I cycle the whole room at the same time. So that's ball pythons, everything, the entire room. And I just do that by manipulating the night drop. So in the wintertime, I'll drop the night temperature to the, mid to low 70s. And in the summertime, it's only in the high 70s.
Right.
But the like once I know a female's Gravid, I know a lot of people will give them 24-hour heat. I don't do that. I just leave them, leave everything the same. So they get down a little cooler at night, and if they want to warm up during the day, they can.
Okay. Now, what have you been doing, Ryan? Because we're in the same demographic, basically, right? So what have you been doing that's been working with your emeralds, like as far as like daytime heat and then nighttime stuff?
Yeah, so I heat my room to like 86 or so.
The room, ambient. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then at night it drops as low as the house does, so that's usually 70s, 72. Yeah, it kind of depends on how it is out here. Some, like right now it's really cold, so but during summer it doesn't get that cold either. So but it seems to be okay. And I've done both ways too, where females had heat all the time that were gestating and others didn't. And it does seem to affect parturition a little bit as far as the length of time goes. But I don't think, it's, if it's not broke, don't fix it, for sure with emeralds. I kind of learned that, I changed out some cages and stuff, and I'm like, oh, maybe that did have a lot. Because, when I first had them all set up, I was doing a lot of the misting systems, sphagnum moss with the lava drainage layer and all these live plants, and they always look really cool. But I'm like, man, it's so much work. And so I kind of swapped them over to the PVC, and I don't know, maybe I was keeping them a little different, but I didn't notice them breeding as easily as, and that could just be whatever, that this year or whatever. It's hard to kind of figure some of that stuff out sometimes. So.
Right. Now, as far as like the way some people keep, like even with the bioactive setups, right? Like that, some people give like sort of direct lamp heating, like, you know what I mean? Like either kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's a Zoom Ed bulb or stuff like that, but is there a certain bulb or certain kind of lighting you should be giving your emerald if you are going to be putting some sort of lighting underneath it? Do any of you recommend? I mean, no. I mean, what do you guys think?
I used to have lights in all the cages, but it was like, this was back when I like these white cages behind me. Some of them still have the light fixture in them, but there was never back then. These cages are probably, I don't know, 15 years old or so. And there wasn't like the little waterproof LEDs like they have now. So the light bulbs that are in there, or the light fixtures, just did not withstand the humidity and the kind of harsh environment very well, and they would just burn out. So after a while of fucking changing bulbs every 2 or 3 months, I finally just was like, all right, fuck it, no more lights. So none of the cages have lights. I just have room lights, and I am interested to see in this new room. I've got a ton of windows, and it gets a lot of natural sunlight. So I'll be interested to see how that maybe affects their behavior, or maybe when they, if that has any effect on, the cycling them from summer to winter. Because my last room was basically, like I said, an underground basement, had 2 little tiny small windows that were blocked because I had blinds in them because I didn't want my neighbors like snooping in on me. So,
do it in there.
Yeah, but now it's, this new room's all, as you've seen on Instagram, it's a shitload of natural light, big windows. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that might help or hurt.
Now, I mean, Ed doesn't have any lighting in his basement, right? And he has all his emeralds in a basement, and there's not one bit of lighting. Am I wrong, or I can't? I mean, I can't remember. I know there's a tour of Ed's fucking basement in Unfiltered podcast, but I can't remember. Is there any lighting? Do you guys remember that? Do you remember if there's any lighting at all in Ed's basement?
Yeah, he has lighting, but
Natural doesn't look like.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Like
I mean, I think well, when Alan was on, I've never actually been to Ed, so I've never really asked him that question, but I think Alan mentioned like when he has a gestating basin, he just moves the heat bulb over.
Yeah. Just transfer. Yeah. Okay.
So that, I mean, it shows you, it all depends on what works for you. And, like we're saying, you people get in these big heated arguments, and it's like, dude, if it works for them, is it that big a deal? Like, how far outside the parameters are we looking, or are we even at all? It's just different. So it's kind of tough.
And then that also kind of shows the experience of somebody, because if you're really kind of like in your head about what else someone else thinks about what you're doing, that obviously tells to yourself that you're not really trusting yourself with what you're doing, right? So like with experience comes confidence. Like you'll know like what the fuck you're doing is either working or if it's not. You know what I mean? So I think people just need to go through this shit. I mean, goddamn, how many horror stories do you have, Marshall, with all the shit you've been through with these animals? Steven,
too many.
Yeah, like, dude, imagine you think Stephen King has stories? If you could write a book on your horror stories, like, bro. Like, wait, because I mean, did you go through a problem with your chondros? There he goes. But I know James Opdell was one where his male's dick got ripped off, right? The female took off and they were locked, and the male's dick was still in her, right?
Hey, start over again. I cut out there for a second. Sorry.
We're talking about like
this was a good one.
There's already been a couple times I've heard the story of a male locked to a female, the female either getting spooked or just taking off with the male's dick and just just ripping the dick out. I don't know if that happened to you too. I know it happened to James.
No, it hasn't happened to me.
Okay. But I mean, that's the kind of shit that happens, and it's like it's pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, you got to be ready for the unexpected for sure.
How much have you gone through, Marshall, with the whole aggression like that? Because I mean, Ryan was telling us stories how he's put in a male in that's put gas into slashes into his females. Have you had to be really cautious about stuff like that before with pairing your emeralds?
The only aggression or kind of fighting that I've ever had is trying to, and Dennis was talking about this last night, but when you have cohabitating animals that are together for feeding, that are together for breeding, or if you just keep them together, is at feeding time. So more than one occasion, I have had to pull animals apart that have, locked up on each other, trying to constrict and eat each other because either the smell of rats are in the room, or I like gave one a rat and then didn't get a rat to the other one. And they both went for the same one, and then they just tangle up, or, so like I have some Amazon tree boas together right now, and I've got to like do this thing where I kind of open two sides of the cage, and I've got like two sets of tongs in my hand, and I've got to like get one on this side of the cage and then get one on this side and then give them at the same time. So that's really it. I haven't seen a lot of aggression towards one another, like just putting them together. If anything, I've seen the females like go to the ground, or, and if you have a really aggressive breeding male, sometimes they'll follow them down there. And other times, like if the female, if I feel like a female's ready to go and she just doesn't like the male, I'll just fucking take all the perches out and put them both in there. And the male will breed her on the ground.
Right.
But I've never had them be aggressive to each other.
Now I know this is your second go at this, Steven, but what has your experience been like with pairing? Like, have you seen kind of like some aggroness from the male with pairing to a female?
Knock on wood, I've had no issues with pairing emeralds whatsoever. So,
I guess that's kind of the one shitty thing about the podcast is like there's a lot of what ifs that you haven't really calculated yet, and you're like, well, fuck, I haven't thought about that, but no, I don't want that to happen.
I mean,
thanks for bringing it up.
So much shit here that
asshole.
There's so much shit here that I'm so worried about pairing up, like putting monitors together, or like indigo snakes, or stuff that like we'll just murder each other. With an emerald, it's like they should be fine, right? Or like 12-foot scrub pythons, it's like they should be okay. But if they start ripping into each other, like it'll end bad for everybody. So just kind of go with the flow and hope things work out. They do most of the time. So,
oh my God. Now I've also heard crazy horror stories about gravid emerald females catching RI or like somehow like dying during their pregnancy. Have you guys either had any experience or also have heard stories like that of like that happening to emeralds? Anyone?
I haven't personally had it happen. Thanks for mentioning it. Where's my knock on wood?
This is real life. This is real life.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always can be a couple of different reasons, but I know some people get really excited and they pair stuff when females are way too young. I think you're going to have less problems with a male that's too young than you are with a female that's too young for sure. But then, I've heard a lot about how important hydration is, and some of my females, like just even hearing about that, I would always, when I had more time, I would hold a deli cup and get them drinking, just try and get them drink as much as they can, as much water as I could give them, just because I had heard that and I was kind of worried about that. But yeah,
I heard about that. Like literally having to put water to their fucking mouth and they'll just start chugging. Like that is bizarre.
Some of them get really big and they don't move very much. So it kind of, you got to play it out. And, if they're not moving and not drinking, then you can run into some problems. But so you do what you can and you base it on the animal and how they're reacting. So
would you recommend that whole Ian Bessel fitness for your snake routine that he does? Like you put it outside and fucking put it on a little jungle gym and spray it down. Do you feel like doing that kind of stuff for your animals good?
I do that in the summertime whenever I can. You guys were talking earlier about, how many meals between bowel movements and all that. And, truth be told, I probably feed mine a little too much because, and I don't listening to Dennis last night. I rarely do I directly spray the animals. So But when I take, if I take them outside, put them on a little jungle gym or whatever, get the water hose and just, spray them 5-10 minutes, man, they take a dump every time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like literally like every time, like clockwork.
Yeah.
But also, go ahead, Ron.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think the bigger thing there is, just making sure you're spraying them down. So I think a lot of people are really scared with the, respiratory infections you can cause. And so they're really hesitant to spray them and get them moving. But I think it's super important.
Yep.
I will say that I routinely see all of mine drinking out of the water bowl, which is on the ground. So, the notion that they won't drink from a water bowl or that it has to be elevated, that's just not true in my experience. Every animal that I have, I've seen them routinely see them drinking. Chondra, emeralds more than chondras actually, drinking out of the water bowl on the ground.
Yeah, if it's one thing that I'm always impressed about my animals, and this is why I change my waters almost every day, it's because if you legit are and this is nothing wrong with it, people do this, but if you change your waters once a week, if you are paying attention and you notice as soon as you change your water, they instantly go down and start drinking. It's like they know, they're like, all right, there's finally fucking fresh water in here. Because, like I said, have you ever let a fucking cup of water, like if you ever poured water for yourself and put it next to your bed and it was there for a couple days and like something happened where you're just like you needed a drink of water and you drank it and you drank like water that's been sitting out for a couple days, it tastes like shit. It tastes like fucking goddamn shit. It's nasty. Like it doesn't even feel good going down your stomach. So that being said, I just can't imagine letting my fucking animals go 7 days without, and there's nothing wrong against this. This is my own personal, I maybe fucking brain fucking myself with this, but having that water be fresh and after them knowing that it's fresh, like when I see them, like actually like, oh fuck, they know exactly that you put fresh water in there. I just feel like that's super important. I think that's what's keeping them hydrated too, is that fresh water. Sorry for my rant.
Yeah, no. Plus, they're in an enclosed cage, so they're crawling through their poop, and then they, like as good as you try to clean the cage, or clean the tub, it's unless you take it out and dump all the substrate out and hose it off and bleach it and scrub it down, you're not getting it 100% clean. And then they're crawling through that, then crawling through the water bowl. So even more so than just leaving it on your nightstand or whatever, this is in like a cage with mulch or substrate, and the animal's physically crawling through the water bowl sometimes. So yeah, I can see that. It definitely gets gets dirty. And I do notice that too. The night or the day that I change water bowls, I'll come down after lights out, and I'll catch 3 or 4 of them drinking. So
right. And have you noticed that yourself, Ryan, when you've been changing your waters out and stuff like that?
Yep, for sure. Or I'm just not using the right year pennies. I don't remember which one it is.
The copper penny. It's like before 1980 or something like that. I don't know. That's some Harlan Wall shit or something, right? I could have sworn I saw that with Harlan or something. Some OG shit. But let's talk about Bye, Marshall. What kind of water are you giving your emeralds and your animals in general, Ryan? Are you using the tap water we have here in California, or do you give them filtered water?
I just have a Brita. I mean, I probably don't really need to do it. It seems like the water at the house has got a lot of calcium in it, so it seems to help that.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's one good thing about California. Fuck. What about you, Marshall? What kind of
small list?
Yeah, right. It's like this big. What about you, Marshall? What kind of water are you giving your animals?
They just get straight up tap water.
Okay, cool.
We do have pretty soft water here. So just for an example, I've got a my rodent rack that has those the little drinking nozzles. Man, they never get clogged up. I have a rack that's probably got nozzles in it that are maybe 10 years old, and I've never changed them and never cleaned them, and they don't leak. So the water here is extremely soft. Like I used to be into, I'm still into it. I don't have one right now, but planted aquariums, and I used to have to add calcium and add, I don't even remember this like mix of nutrients that you would buy if you have really soft water. So like when I would test it with a test kit, it would be like so low that it wouldn't even register on the scale.
Damn.
So there's hardly any, I don't get calcium buildup on glass most of the time. I do, but it takes years and years and years. The fact that I've never had to change mouse nozzles. I mean, Stephen, how often do you guys clean the rodent nozzles?
I mean, we have thousands of tubs, so it's hard to quantify, but we buy like 1,000 new sipper nozzles like every few months. So.
And do you clean them, or do you just replace them and toss the old ones?
So we will clean them and replace them, but we've always found that they never work as well as those new nozzles do, and the amount of time we would be wasting cleaning them.
It's just easier to buy new ones.
It's just faster to get them, especially we're buying them in a larger bulk quantity.
Right.
But we're on a well here, so
you probably have soft water too.
Well, it's fine for the rodents. I don't like using it for the reptiles, particularly, other than like the crocodilians. But I feel like that well water takes more of a toll on those sippers than what you're dealing with.
All this water talk made me had to piss. Yeah. Okay. You want to talk about something that had to do with the water conversation that I had with a well-known breeder. We all know who this is, but man, this guy was telling me about certain I get distilled water and I get filtered water, and like he had 4 different waters or something that he combined together for his neos. Anyone want to guess who you think I'm talking about right now? Anyone want to guess? We talked for an hour just about water.
Yeah, I have a good one.
Out of Texas. Nobody wants to guess. Hide your B.
He's probably doing yoga right now and like bouncing on a finger or something like that.
Hide your B-ax. I'm talking about Patrick Holmes.
Patrick with a good body.
Yeah. Everybody loves that guy though. So you can't really give him crap about his water.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I love Patrick. Yeah. But what's this crazy is like I obviously want to listen to what he does because what he does works for him. But fuck, bro, like that whole water thing, I'm like, oh my God. I was like, after 20 minutes, I was like, dude, what did he say about the first distilled water? I was so confused. But I respect it because he's putting enough time and effort to realize like what's making his neos thrive and what's not, because he was telling me that where he's at, his tap water was killing his neos is what he was.
So when I lived in Texas, in Dallas, which is not, I think he's up in Plano, isn't he?
Yeah, Plano.
Yeah, so I live like 20 minutes south of him, and there's chloramines in that water. It's no joke. You can't let it sit long enough to distill it out. I had dart frogs at the time. They actually had skin lesions from it. Even though in Ohio, I would just let it sit and distill out a lot of the all the different chemicals and stuff. If it sat long enough, it was fine. But yeah, there's some nasty stuff in that Dallas water. I know that from dart frogs. So
that makes sense. Now, Marshall, real quick, what would you say future-wise it's looking like for these basins? Like I'm talking about, like as far as people getting into them, like project-wise, like them becoming more like looked upon in people's collections. Like, where do you see that going?
It's weird. Obviously right now there's way more demand than supply. Other than Ed, and I guess Steve Volk would be the second person who kind of produces them on a regular basis. There's really not that many people, You'll see, there's people every year that'll have a clutch a litter or an odd litter here and there. The last time I produced pure basins was, I want to say it was 13 or something like that. So it's been almost 8 or 9 years for me. Yeah. So, there's definitely demand for them though, because, with the stuff that I've been posting about what I went through with this female lately, and Ryan and I joke about this all the time, but it's like people, as soon as you post something, it's like, oh, do you have a waiting list? Do you have, as soon as you can't, I mean, what you were saying earlier, it is kind of tight right now as far as, like, do I plan to sell any if I have them? I don't know, maybe. Just depends on how many I have. If I have, 15, I'll probably sell a few. If I have 6 or 7, I'm probably keeping them, So I think as more and more people get them and work with them, it seems like in the last couple of years, there's been quite a few people who have picked up animals from Ed, and seems to be a lot of people raising up a pair or two. And, I would think that once those animals mature, with so many people working with them, that you're going to start seeing more people have success with them. And once more people have success, then there's more available. And I think it's just simply a supply thing right now. There's way more people that they would be way more prevalent in collections if they were available, but they're really not readily available. And when they are, they're pretty expensive. And I mean, even if you have the money, they're hard to find.
Yeah, it's almost money like money can almost buy anything. But I mean, like right now, there's so many people that have the money already that are just fucking waiting. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and people do, especially the ones who aren't familiar with the whole side of the emerald and conjuring community. Like they think they could just bully in and be like, well, I got the money. Money's not an issue. I don't fucking matter. Like there's so many other people with money and they're waiting. You know what I mean? Like it don't work like that. So
yeah.
But I also feel like that's what pushes people to want to say, fuck it, I'm going the import route. Like I'll go the import route then. It's cheaper and it's easier to get.
You can't do that with basins though.
Not with basins.
Right.
Right. Facts. Yeah.
Yep. So then you could have that whole debate on whether northerns basins are more healthy than northerns in general. But yeah,
I don't really see a difference. I mean, me personally, I think I would say they're about the same. I've never really noticed. I've not had a lot of northerns, but the crosses that I have, I don't really tell that much of a difference. In my opinion, they're way hardier than chondros, 100%. But as far as the difference between northerns and basins or crosses and basins, they're all about the same to me. That Miss Willy female is literally the only emerald tree boa that's ever died on me. And I've been having, these are 07 animals that are behind me. So I've been keeping them for a long time.
Yeah. I was referring more to how the basin, once the export was closed down, a lot of stuff is now captive produced, where we're still dealing with the wild caught stuff coming in and exposing the northerns. So there's that whole aspect there. So like the number of animals in the U.S. as a whole is probably a little bit more represented by wild caught stuff than it is captive born at this point. But I mean, that's just, that could be incorrect, but that's kind of how I feel.
And it seems like there's been some strides made recently of, there are a couple guys who know how to deal with imports, and have the treatment regimen down, and, what you do with them, and, how you worm them, and, whatever. Like that's, I don't know. I know nothing about it, but or a handful of guys who just have been doing it for so long that they've got a kind of system in place, and it seems to work for them.
Yep, for sure.
A system in place. that works is what's crucial more than anything. Is just finding that system is what that system for you, plain and simple. Marshall, I can't help but to ask, man, that snake right there, right behind you, that green, that's fucking what is that, bro? Yeah, can you want to floss it real quick, or what's the deal?
That's a cross, 50-50 cross.
A lot of green in that. That thing looks fucking banging, bro. Let's see it. I want to see it. Oh my god! Look at the green on that thing, bro.
Yeah, she's big. She's the only snake that I have to keep a lock on her cage because she knows how to fucking slide the glass. So yeah, I've been breeding her with this guy.
Nice.
And he is also a 50-50 cross. So the two of them, I separated them tonight to feed them because these are two that you cannot feed together. They're both just fucking insane, and they will wrap each other up. I learned that the hard way about 2 weeks ago. So I separated them to feed them tonight, but they've been, one big puddle of green snake for the last month, and I'll give them a day or two off here to digest, and then I'll throw them back together. But I hopefully we'll get a litter from them this year. We'll see.
Did she go last year?
That's cool.
She went 2 years ago.
And
So
you didn't pair last year?
I didn't pair. Now I always give emeralds a year in between.
Respect. Okay. And you too, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Okay. So, because for the most part, Ryan, how many pairings do you typically have each year going?
Yeah, I mean, I usually for sure one, but last year, nope. And then I've had two, but it's just tough. You need a lot of females to have that rotation down, or you can't really, because they're not all going to go if you pair them up. And, sometimes the stress, you get a respiratory infection, maybe you cool them too much, or who knows what. It's always something. So it's a slow game for sure.
It really is a slow game. And then, with you, Marshall, how many times have you ran into respiratory issues with your females after they meet gravid, or even before they're gravid, just with them being adults? Have you ran into a lot of RI issues at all?
Not with emeralds. I've had one emerald ever with a respiratory, and gave it a round of amikacin, and it was fine. Recovered, and it was a really bad respiratory. It kind of hit it for a while, and I didn't notice it until I took it out of the cage one day, and it kind of leaned its head down, and water literally poured out of its nose, and it was bad. And like I said, gave it a round of amikacin, and man, it recovered fine, and it's still doing great today. That's the only emerald I've ever had get sick. And chondros, man, it's a yearly thing. Any female that you breed, not any, like the female that just laid this recent clutch that hatched, she's doing fine. But it's not uncommon for me to have to, give them a round of antibiotics or whatever. It's pretty common for them to get a respiratory infection after they go through the stress of laying eggs and breeding and all that.
No, I know there's different levels to the respiratory. There's kind of light, you see it like a light RI, and then you see obviously a heavier version of an RI, right? But if it's something on the lighter side, you don't always need to give it antibiotics, correct? Something you could kind of get at, it'll work its way out during spiking up the heat, or giving it a good sized meal, or is it something you always want to treat whenever you see the sign?
I personally, if it's not bad, I'll try to. The first trick is stick them in the incubator for a couple weeks. So, I'll set the incubator at 87 or 88, and I'll just put them in a tub with a perch in a water bowl, and I'll just stick them in there. And a lot of times that'll fix it. If it's a really bad one, I do that and give them a round of shots. A lot of people can't do that. I'm really lucky in that I've got a good friend who is an AZA accredited herp specialized vet, and she's my, she lives really like 10 minutes from me, and we've developed a friendship and relationship over the last 10 or 15 years. And I just call her up and say, hey, I've got a sick animal, and sometimes I'll take them over to her house and see her, and other times she'll just maybe I'll send her a video or something, and then she'll mix up some amikacin for me. And I keep insulin syringes around, and I've done it so many times now, it's no big deal. I can treat them and give them the shot, by myself. I used to have to have my wife hold them for me, but now I can do it all kind of not one-handed, but do it all myself.
Right. And then Ryan, what about you as far as, like you have some sort of partnership, not partnership, but like you have some sort of like support, like if you do need any kind of vet attention, right? Like, do you have a nearby vet that you associate, that you're like go to, or like have somebody you contact in case something happens like that for you?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Boyer, but I also have, close veterinary friends too. So usually I run it by him, and kind of same thing as like he's saying, show them what's going on, or they come over and look at what's going on, and kind of guide you that way. And then the increasing the humidity, and with incubator, that definitely helps as well.
Because also you see a lot too is like people reaching out for help, like on whichever platform, but they're like, I don't have a vet in my area. Like you hear that a lot. Like there's not a vet in my area who knows jack shit about reptiles, right? So that's kind of common, right? So like, how can you really prepare yourself for that? Like, you do get an animal, like even a nice basin, right? But like there's no vet in your area. Like, what should you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, they talk with each other as well. So if you find a vet that is close to you, a lot of times, I mean, like, isn't it Wafa, Brad Wafa, Bradley Wafa? He's a vet,
Wafa,
right?
yeah.
Wafa, sorry. I know a lot of times, they'll phone consult and stuff. So they have that option as well. So I think it's just asking the right questions, and the man, I always forget what the acronym is, but the Associate of Reptile and Amphibian Veterinarians is a great spot. Yeah,
Kush knows for sure. What is it, Kush? Say it.
ARAV, ARAV. The Association of Reptile Amphibian Veterinarians.
He's been associated since 6th grade.
Not with that. I wish I was a vet. I don't have those abilities.
What size is your first US Arc shirt? Be honest. What size is it?
It may have been a large, actually.
It's all like
It was a long time ago, though.
I do give Chris a lot of props, because I mean, ever since I met him, he's always been rocking a US Arc shirt. This dude's all about his shit before it got all popular. You know what I mean? But I'm saying, that was funny.
I listened to country back when country wasn't cool. Is that what you're telling me?
Still not cool.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm gonna say that. It is mic drop, please.
That's still not cool.
Country sucks. I'm out.
Yeah.
Damn, you cold as ice, Marshall. You cold as ice.
Sorry, man. Everybody cut out again. My great internet here. I missed it. What?
No, because you're like, it's still not cool, and you just dipped out.
Where do you live again? I just want to know.
Alabama, country capital, man.
Yeah.
Alabama.
Marshall, your thoughts on US Arc, man? Like right now with like what's going on, and I'm gonna get Ryan's thoughts on this too right now. But like, how big of an importance do you think it is, or for the fight that we need right now with US Arc?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I'm not a member. I've been meaning to do it, and I haven't. So thanks for
Got it.
calling me out. So I'm going to
Got
do it when
Twice now.
we get off this podcast. It's not because I haven't wanted to. It's just, man, it's just, just with everything that's been going on, I just haven't done it. It's I've been meaning to, but I'm going to I'm going to be a silver member. Obviously, it's really important. Nothing has really affected me here in Alabama, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to happen in the future. It's kind of terrible what's happened in Florida and other places as far as what's happening. It feels like it's a kind of a slippery slope, and just a matter of time before it gets to everybody. So it's definitely important.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree for sure. I mean, it's definitely important. If you just let stuff go, it kind of just votes in and you don't even know what happened. But I also think as a community, we need to be aware of some of our actions that might not shed the best light on the community, because I think that's where we're kind of losing it.
Yeah.
It's really cool to get all involved with different things, but if you're putting out a bad light for the rest of the community, we're kind of just sinking the ship.
Yeah.
So, I saw that Dan from DM Exotics made a nice little post kind of about that, calling to light some of that stuff I'm kind of referring to. And, people are like, right on, man, but, everyone has their own perspective to it. And that's what's kind of unfortunate is you don't really know who's seeing the content and what reaction. Do they just not understand it, or are we perceiving it the wrong way? So it's just something we need to be aware of.
Yeah,
I know, Stephen, you got something to say on that.
Oh, I mean, we're sitting at over 2.5 hours. I could get us to 5 right now. But I mean, honestly, the reptile community as a whole, we kind of screwed ourselves over here, for a number of reasons. Because we wouldn't be in the situation we were today if we had governed ourselves from the start. All this went down in Florida recently, where these conditional species are now just going to be outright banned. With a few loopholes here and there, and modifying enclosures and whatnot, but essentially it drives away the future market. Blame the Burmese pythons on Hurricane Andrew, whatever. All of these species are invasive because humans screwed up. Make your facility hurricane proof. Tegus are invasive now. You can't tell me that's not because facilities had poor enclosures and they got out. Unfortunately, the mistakes of a few are affecting everybody as a whole. And the private sector has done nothing to regulate itself. The zoo field has the AZA and the ZAA. Those are governing bodies that set standards on their facilities. And if this facility doesn't meet those standards, they don't get that accreditation.
Yeah.
Then they're just a roadside zoo. And the private sector, like us, there's no way for us to separate ourselves in the eyes of the lawmakers from the guy poking a monocle cobra in the face while he's high. I mean, in the eyes of the lawmakers, there's no difference. But for the reptile community, instead of us trying to lift ourselves up to a new standard, we bicker on Facebook and validate the opinions of those who share our own opinions. Seeing sensational content that paints these animals in a bad light angers me just as much as seeing people on Facebook bashing this content. And you look at this post and you see like 400 comments. How many hours were wasted commenting on that post with people that you agree with? That it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing for bettering our hobby. That upsets me just as much as the people who are negatively portraying this. Because if you disagree with, these people who are primarily on YouTube making this content, and I'm speaking on probably about 5 to 10 different individuals, not one person, 2 people in particular.
Right.
If you disagree with how they're portraying the industry, well, then you do it better.
Right.
You're not going to change them, and you're just giving them free publicity. You're saying their name over and over again, and if somebody doesn't know them, they're going to go watch their channel. They're going to watch their well-produced videos that they've mastered their craft on. They become good presenters, and you may be giving them more of an audience.
Yeah.
And that's really the truth at the end of the day. So, supporting USARK, which how this all started, has been important. It'll continue to be important. It now is more important than ever. Sure, this is definitely a bandwagon effort recently, but good. Everyone needs to be aware of this battle. Of course, since the Biden administration took over, politics aside, that was the landmark where all of these reptile-related bills or animal-related bills started being introduced. It was an intentional act by animal rights, and we should have seen it coming, and here we are now. So not much we can do in hindsight. And there have been a few particularly scary ones where there's wording within these bills that give the government on either a state or a national level this sweeping control that they're putting in this very vague wording, and then they're the ones interpreting that vague wording. So right now there's a bill introduced nationally by Marco Rubio, who's a well-known politician because he was running up against Trump back in 2016, that would overturn the decision that essentially removed those large constrictors off of the Lacey Act, where it removes the wording that USARK lawsuit would then become null, and then those can't ship Burmese pythons, rock pythons, retics, anacondas anymore. The scariest thing that I saw was there is this white list, the opposite of a black list, of species that are okay to ship. And essentially, if a species is not on that list, it is considered injurious. If a green tree python is not listed on there, shipping a green tree python across state lines would be a felony. You could go to prison, get a $250,000 fine for shipping a green tree python, just because it's not listed on the it's okay list. That is a as I see it, just a huge violation of just our constitutional rights as American citizens. But we're not the ones making the rules. We're the ones fighting this. Bills get amended, they get circulated. That wording could exit, like the bill in California that was like the overall animal restriction ban, where you limited to like a combination of 6 rodents, dogs, and cats as a person, less than 10 reptiles, less than 10 insects. Like, it would have eliminated agriculture in that city. It had no grandfather clause. So like if we had this facility in Eureka, California, we would have had 60, which it didn't, which is a great landmark for for USARK, for the reptile community as a whole. If that had passed, though, we would have had 60 days to sell, euthanize, or give up for euthanasia 300 and something reptiles, many of them, threatened to critically endangered. But that's what they want. And I feel like for the last, and like MJ's, said kind of jokingly, I've been following and supporting USARK for, probably the last 8 or 9 years or so. And just kind of keeping up with what's been going on. And we've been hearing forever, they're coming to take everything. They're coming to take everything. They're coming to take everything. And slowly there have been bills introduced, and, the constrictor ban. The first time, that was the big, like, whoa, this is real, it's happening. Where for a couple years, you know, that leveled breeding on those larger species, and that got overturned. And now we're looking at the real, hey, they're coming to take everything, because in a month-and-a-half period, there were more bills introduced on state and national level than there were in the previous 4 or 5 years. And this is, you know, this is a rally around USARC, but it is also take initiative as an individual in your community. If you live in a state where there is one of these bills introduced, get in touch with your local representatives and calmly present your side. You know, try to understand what they've heard, because they're just, you know, there's information from the lobbying bodies that are donating to their campaigns and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we're the underfunded side, but we have the truth on our side, which is good, you know. And animal rights, it's almost like a religion, you know, in a way where they have like this doctrine of animal rights, and they preach it to their followers, and they follow it because that's what they've been preached. And, you know, if you look at it from a scientific perspective, you know, nothing really pans out, but that's not what matters to them. So we're not arguing them. We're arguing who they're talking to in the government, presenting our side of facts and knowledge, and, you know, tried and true. This is what works. Like, you know, talking about like conservation. If humans weren't involved in conservation of animals, watch out. You know, mass extinction number, whatever, is on the way. But that's not what these legislators are hearing from animal rights groups. It's, you know, the solution is eliminate all human-animal contact. Well, yeah, if you can regulate legal activities, you can't regulate illegal activities, because most of this is coming from like criminal organizations smuggling animals, or overseas interests in timber and whatnot. Like, you're not going to stop them. That's the hard target. We're the easy target. So we're the first on their tirade to end human-animal contact, and we just have to we're the guinea pig, unfortunately. So I've been ranting way too long now. We were having a fun show, and I feel like I've just brought the mood down.
Yeah, you just went full
as
cook.
a reptile,
okay.
Yeah, as a reptile person, I would say where we are now, take a look at yourself, where you want this to go, and what you're doing. If you feel like you're somebody who bickers on Facebook, you know, think about, what is that really accomplishing? Is it pushing this forward? Is it helping me save my rights to keep my animals? Or is it me just validating my own opinion that I don't feel highly about it? And now I'm getting a little personal, so I should probably stop talking here soon. But, you know, I think for anything, this right now is a time where we need to reflect really quickly on what we're doing as a whole, as an industry, as a community, where our energy is going, and where we probably should be putting our energy, and hopefully rallying together. I don't care what you keep. I don't care who you are friends with, what you support. Our cause means more than all of those little beefs and all that bickering. And if we can't do that, we have some pretty big issues coming. But not like there isn't time still. So Amen. I feel like this is a time of transition in the reptile world, and really we just need to be on the right side of history, and, you know, do everything the right way, and, you know, we can get past this. So anyway, that was my tirade about what's going on right now. So which brings
me to my next topic: ball pythons. I'm just kidding.
Hell yeah!
All right, left.
Ryan dicked out.
He said, "Fuck it."
He's like, "Oh, it's over."
No, respect, Kush. I'm glad you got that out, man. Because I know you've been.
I've been very frustrated today in particular, so I kind of needed that little therapy session.
All right, well, I'm glad it's there, and it's going to be on the. It's always going to be here for people to look at. So I appreciate that.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Hey, Marshall, I just got
some ball python.
Marshall, I got to say, man, I appreciate you joining in, man. This really means a lot, not only to me, but everyone else who was watching this. I'm telling you right now, this was a special treat. My last question for you, Marshall, before we have you dip out. For people looking, because like I was talking to Ryan earlier in the episode and Kush about like the popularity with emeralds and just chondros, right? Like obviously that the ball python industry grows, so will the other species of, you know, snakes and other hobbies will grow, right? But where do you really see like the future for new keepers with chondros and emeralds? Like, do you really feel like people are going to really be able to start establishing these lineages that have been kept and bred and handed down? And do you feel like there's a big future for this, or do you still feel like it's going to be a select few people who really just keep these going for the long run? What do you think?
I mean, I think it is going to be somewhat of a niche market. You know, it's not going to ever be ball python level, just because they're not, you know, they're not as easy to take care of. They're not as they do require more attention to detail, and you know, the chondro community being what we are, you know, it takes kind of a special person, and you know, that could be viewed as a good thing or a bad thing. You know, everyone in general, I would say, is and nothing. It's not a knock against any other community or keepers of any other species, but you know, as a general rule, I feel like the arboreal community is people that have more attention to detail. They're more kind of studied on the animal. They're more, you know, they're kind of more into the details, which you have to be successful with them. Whereas, you know, ball pythons are part of the reason why they're so popular is because, you know, if you put you know, you can get on YouTube and there's a million different you know, videos, and there's like kind of a cookbook recipe that you can use across the board and be successful with them. And arboreals are just not like that. So, you know, I do think that, you know, I feel like Rico dying and nidovirus kind of set the set chondros back a couple of years. Because back when I was getting into it, it was not hard to find babies. I mean, like, they were expensive, but it was never like, holy shit, like I've got money and I can't buy a baby. Like, there's nothing for me to buy, which seems to be the spot that we're in now, you know. And I think that those two reasons I just said, Rico and nidovirus, are probably, you know, the two major causes of that. But I think we're kind of getting over the hump, over the hill. It seems like more people are being successful with both chondros and emeralds. And like I was saying earlier, there seems to be a lot of people that have, you know, one or two pairs of emeralds that are growing them up. And, you know, once those animals get to mature age and start being able to reproduce, I think you're going to see more availability and more accessibility to people who are not like in the, you know, inner circle or whatever of, you know, people who just trade animals amongst each other. And once that happens, you know, it just kind of can go from there. They're never going to be ball pythons, but, you know, I really don't want them to be ball pythons. You know, if they were, then that would kind of take some of the sparkle away from them. You know.
You don't want six banger chondros? Dude, he's not fucking around.
I love it.
If I don't like it, if you don't like it, he's gone. Look at that.
It's a good tactic.
Oh shit. Anyways,
like
well, Marshall,
point. Boom, I'm out.
Boom. Hey, you're the man, Marshall. Thank you so much, bro. You have a great night.
Ryan, Kush, MJ.
I'll talk to you soon. Hey, thanks for all the convos, man. You're the man. I appreciate you, Marshall. Have a good night, bro. Thank you.
Talk to you guys later. See ya.
All right, man. Take care.
Oops. There you go. Sorry. And then Kush, I'm gonna let you go too, real quick, because I just got a text saying you got to go, and you know, somebody says, yeah, someone's like, you need to let him go, and I was like, whoa, sorry, I'm just. So listen, Big
No hostage here.
Yeah, no, you're good. Hey, Kush, thank you so much for hanging out tonight, bro. I appreciate you. It's always a pleasure having you around. And then, as always, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay.
Yep, for sure.
All right. See ya.
See you, Ryan. Take care.
Hey, buddy.
MJ.
What a treat for you, Ryan. I got Marshall.
Yeah.
And then we got Kush to go full fucking. He went full Cushington on his ramp, US Arc, which was important, man. So, wow, good times.
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, right?
Yeah, man. Dude, honestly, is there any way we can maybe show that snake off a little bit, or can you bring it closer? How's that?
Yeah, let's see here.
I don't want to make it difficult.
It's all right. I think I can figure.
Oh, don't. We got to see how fucking far it is. Uh-oh. Here we go. Oh, did it disconnect? Oh, damn. Yeah, definitely. That wasn't Desiree who told Steven that he had to go, just so you guys know. Oh, wow. Look at that. All right.
There we go. I just got him stuck up here.
Dude, that thing is fucking gorgeous, Ryan. Wow. Okay, so real quick, talk a little bit about this snake as far as like, what it is and all that, if you don't mind, while you're showing it, if that's possible. Or like, right now, just tell me about it.
Oh, yeah. It's, well, like I was saying, it's kind of what we were referring to as new locale these days.
Right.
It was a wild-caught animal I picked up from Ray Melise. I actually traded 2 of my babies and some money for this guy. But as soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh man, like, what can we do, buddy? I hate to be that guy, but
yeah.
But yeah, he originally came in from Joe, who I'm not sure who he originally got from Strictly or whatever.
Right.
But originally an import that did well for me. Kind of run through the regimen or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I was like, I gotta at least try. Oh, he does well, and he's sired that litter for me. I'm just trying to get him going still. So
it's funny you bring that up, Ryan, because if it's one thing I admired, like why Forrest looked up to you so much was because he was able to get a snake from you, and that right there alone just meant so much to him, like just to have some of your bloodline. And I know that's something he always cherished. Like that's one thing he always admired, that fact that he had some of your work over his collection, which obviously drew me to you even more, right? But since Forrest was really special to me and you, man, I want to know from your eyes, what was special about Forrest to you that made you want to say, you know what, I am going to sell one of my animals to him? Because that is like I said, it is, not too many people do have your work, and there's a lot of people that do want your work. But Forrest was one of those guys, and I just want to know what it was.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We talked a lot. It was more than just like an acquaintance. I felt like we were good friends, and yeah, man, it was rough, but just a down to earth guy that was really cared about the community. I see a lot of that in Steven as well. So
yeah, big time. Yeah, I love Kush, man, and you understand. Forrest brought me closer to Kush, brought me closer to Dez, and then obviously you, because I mean, you know me close enough to know that I'm a handful sometimes. I go off the rails. There could be times, and I kind of almost, I did. I actually gave you some of that bullshit that Forrest picked up on, and that was the first time Forrest did not ever have me ever want to fucking you weren't that guy. You were never that guy, and I was just like, whoa, and Forrest was very adamant about it. But I'm very glad for that. Think about it. You know what I mean? I have a relationship with you, and we both like Nacho Libre, which we would have never. I mean, I'm just there's so much amazing stuff that this guy left us. You know what I mean? And you being on this show is one of the things I'm more blessed about. And that's one of my biggest drives, one of my biggest passions. The reason why I go so hard on the podcast with the animals I keep is because the fire that Forrest left inside of me when he took off. So, and I know that dude was just as important to you as he was to me. And this is why I was looking forward to this episode. This is why I had to have Marshall on here, because Marshall and you, like I said, this is coming out of his mouth. And I have multiple podcasts where he said this, where you two are definitely his biggest drive and inspiration in this reptile game. And when him saying that when he was still here never left my mind. Like I always remembered, because you got to think Forrest was my best friend. I looked up to Forrest. So anything that he looked up to, I looked up to. And that's what you are, man. So this means the world to me. Thank you so much. You're the fucking man, hands down. And thank you for giving a lot of people knowledge, man. You really do a lot when you can. And and I know you're a straightforward guy, and a lot of everything you talk about is just from experience. It comes from all the fucking shit that you went through, and I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah. I have different experiences, so
yeah.
I have different personalities and stuff too. Sometimes it's fun to see it well and not at other times, but that's part of being human. So
it is.
I'll never apologize for who you are, man. So
and
that was one thing that was really cool about Forrest. He's a straight shooter too, like a really nice guy, super knowledgeable, but at the same time, like he wasn't afraid to tell you, like, hey, well, what about this? Or, are you thinking this way and that way? So it was cool to kind of see him pull everybody together. And, I didn't know Rico, but a lot of people talked about him the same way.
Yeah.
Gary Savino's another great one that really does well with just bringing everybody together and being a positive influence. And that's what a lot of stuff Kush was talking about tonight. So, yep.
All great people, all great things. What my last question for you, Ryan, before I let you go, man, and this has been an amazing 3 hours, but my last question for you is your piece of advice for anyone, right? Like, because like I said, a lot of newcomers, right? And people with money or not enough money, but they want to get into the emerald game like really bad, like that's their passion. What are your advice for people who just want to get into this, something like what you're into right now?
Right. Yeah, I think patience is one. It's really tough because I think a lot of the other markets, it's really easy to find animals. But with these guys, you kind of really got to do a little bit of background work on the person selling and just animal in general. So I think that's one of them. Mentorship's huge. There's someone that's been doing it for half his life, then maybe you should talk to him. But just learn from the people that have really paved the way for the rest of us, and showing that appreciation. I think it really helps, and it prepares you. It's always kind of frustrating to see new keepers, and they're so excited, but some of them almost get really upset when you're trying to. I'm not going to downplay your experience with other species, but I think it's important to realize that you should really be more humble and listening to what some of the older keepers are saying and that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of is tough to just be open to ideas and so on. But, has our own experiences too. So we got to respect that as well. Really dialing, learning the husbandry, talking to multiple people, what's worked, what doesn't. But, like Ed's always told me, it's like, you can put these guys in pretty much anything as long as you're meeting the husbandry parameters, so it's hard to say what's better than another. It's just what works best for that person. But
yeah. Yep. And also too, man, people sometimes just don't want to, they hear something they just don't want to hear, and that's going to happen. Like, I remember, like we were talking earlier, like, when I was thinking my emerald was turning black, I didn't want to hear what you had to say, but what you had to say turned out to be 100% correct. You know what I mean? So it's not easy. It's not always easy, man. It sucks sometimes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, you care about that animal, and the last thing you want to do is feel like you're not doing something right by it. And I think the thing that people need to realize is, if this is disease, sometimes there's nothing. Hindsight, there's not a lot you could have done about it. It could have already happened before you even acquired the animal. So, but yeah.
100%, man. Dude, well, Ryan, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you so much. again.
Too,
Yeah, you gave me 3 hours of your time, and you're the man for it, man. And I'll be in touch with you. And round 2 worthy, bro. We'll need you again. Obviously, we're gonna need you on Unfiltered too. You're just needed on all podcasts that we do. So, all right, you have a great night, Ryan. Okay, thank you so much, bro. Ryan Wolleson. All right. Oh, wait, hold up. Fuck, dude, I almost let you go without the hot seat questions. There's hot seat questions. Hold on.
Oh no.
Yeah. What was I thinking? Damn, that would have been the first. Oh man. All right, hot seat questions real quick from my man Ryan Wolleson. You know how these work? I'm just gonna spit them out. You just got to answer. No explanation. Okay?
Really?
Yep. Here we go. So hot seat questions from my man Ryan Wolleson. Ready?
No ball python questions.
Okay, respect. I can do that. Ready? All right. Frozen thought or live?
I did have a ball python.
Okay.
So I'm just being messing with.
Frozen thought or live?
Frozen thought.
A cut or no cut?
Oh my gosh. A cut.
Okay. Are you a big flexor or no flexor?
No flexor.
Okay. Baseball or football?
Football.
Okay. Suzuki or Honda?
Honda.
Respect. Steak or fish?
Steak.
Van Halen or Sammy Hagar?
Van Halen.
Respect. Eminem or Machine Gun Kelly?
Eminem.
All right. West Coast rap or East Coast rap?
I don't know what's the difference.
All right. How about Tupac or Biggie?
Oh, Tupac.
All right. Respect. All right. Little word association. First thing to come to mind: milk.
2%.
Cocoa.
Marshmallows.
Stuck shed.
What?
Stuck shed.
Suck shed? I don't know. Dehydration.
Day 52.
What?
Day 52.
I don't know. Condor eggs.
Instagram trolls.
Instagram trolls.
Yeah.
Them.
Fuck. Here's what I want to know, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you anyway. So one has to go forever, and I mean forever, ever. Instagram or Facebook? Which one?
Instagram.
Whoa, I knew it. Because you have an arsenal of support on Facebook. I get it. He does. Super respectful. And like I said, I don't like Facebook, but you're one reason why I will go to Facebook for sure. This is it, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, Ed, Bill Stiegel, and there's a couple other ones. Patrick was better reachable on Facebook as well. But thank you for being a good part of Facebook. I appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you so much. But you did it, man. You did it, bro. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, man. We get together.
Later, Ryan.
Later, brother.
Nice shirt, by the way. I like your shirt.
Right?
Later, bro.
Got a friend.
I got your hat too. Don't forget, I got your hat. I'll have to deliver. I'll have to deliver to you at your place, though. That's the only way. That's the only way. Once we're good.
You
okay.
should. You should, man. We need to do that.
All right, we'll do that. We'll link up for sure, dude.
Right on, brother.
Have a good night, Ryan.
Unplugged.
Ryan Wolleson, ladies and gentlemen. Whew, what a great night. What a great episode. Thank you for all of you who hung out. Thank you for all the U.S. ARC donations. You guys are beautiful. You're amazing. Very special episode, like I said. Inspiration galore, okay? Stephen Cush, Marshall Mendes, Ryan Wolleson, all in one episode. You guys are welcome. Welcome. That's just that typical fucking trap talk with MJ shit. You know what I mean? Expected. And then expect for next week to be even hotter. And yeah, thank you everyone who tuned in. If this was your first time tapping in, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the dislike button. Give me some sort of feedback. Drop a comment, man. If you want to really show some love, drop a comment. Not in the live chat, but just stop, drop a comment, anything. Respect. I appreciate that so much. If you do want to support this channel further than a subscription, and you're like, damn, I want to know what's really going on with the Snake Trap. What? There's a Snake Trap family? Yeah, there is. It's called the Patreon Snake Trap family, man. Make sure you go down to the Patreon page and join the Snake Trap family. Come see what we got going on every Sunday. Trap University sessions. You never know who I'm going to bring to the trap session. You never know. You know I got a lot of friends in this shit, clearly. So tap in, see what's good. And yeah, man, just be ready for next trap talk session. That's all I got to say. Each trap session is going to get heavier, heavier, and heavier. So God bless. Be safe.